Hey, no worries. I'm Elissa Richards, chairperson of the Utah Geological Survey Board. I'd like to call this meeting of the Utah Geological Survey to order. It is now 8:31 a.m. on April 11th, 2024. And in compliance with Utah's open meetings laws, this meeting is being recorded in its entirety. This recording is classified as a public record, and the following board members are in attendance: Elissa Richards, Riley Brinkerhoff, David Hammond, Rick Chestnut, Dave Garbrick, Sam Quigley, and I believe Ken is remote, correct?
Yes.
And Ken Fleck.
Correct.
Thank you, awesome. And we don't have anybody absent, everybody's here.
That's been a long time.
That's awesome, yeah.
Excited to see everybody.
Yeah, we're all here, that's great. The following individuals representing the Utah Geological Survey and the Department of Natural Resources are in attendance: Bill Keach, Division Director; Mike Hylland, Deputy Director; Russ Fillmore, Financial Manager; Cheryl Wing, Board Secretary; I think is Patrick here?
Right here?
Oh, Patrick Ingerson.
That's right.
Ingerson.
That's right.
And I'm coming from UGS to speak with us are Hugh Hurlow, Mark Milligan, Ben Dlin. And then, I don't know if you want to make an introduction yet, or you wanted to wait till we get further.
We'll do this fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
If present, we welcome all visitors and interested persons at this time. And as a courtesy to everyone participating in this meeting, at this time, we ask for all cell phones, pagers, and other electronic devices to be turned off or changed to silent mode. Board motions and votes will be reflected in the minutes and recorded by an individual board member. And now let us proceed with the agenda.
Okay. Well, good morning, everyone. I'm excited to see everybody.
Yeah.
We haven't had that happen for a while. So, the agenda, I put it up here a little bit longer. We'll see if it takes us that long. Let's see. Come on. Here we go. So I guess we do the approval of the minutes. And on the proposals, I have a question, Cheryl, maybe. We circulated one yesterday, right?
Two, and
Two.
they were not put on because they came after we submitted the board.
Can we do that in this meeting though?
Yeah, I can add it to the pending minutes as well, because everyone's seen it. I don't know if everyone, well,
Has anyone not seen
approved
the
it, but
two proposals that came yesterday?
Yeah, I've seen them.
I think I already sent my approval.
Yeah, I saw that,
Okay.
but I didn't
Yeah.
respond yet.
I say we go ahead and add those.
Okay, yeah, let's just add them.
Oh, before we start, we showed this to our staff, since this is our 75th anniversary this year. July 1st, 1949 was by decree became. So I was thinking on the 50th anniversary, so Tuesday,
Oh, that's cool.
we took one, and it's like 65-ish people. Probably about 30 that were out still out in the field, doing something. But we got a lot, we got quite a few people. So anyway, just thought I'd show that to you. Yeah, fantastic. We had a lot of people. So anyway, that was before, this is today. A little bit bigger group than before. The other one had about 50, I think, if I counted it. Right.
We had, what, maybe 4 that were in both pictures?
Oh, that's right. So yeah, 4. You're in this one, right, Mike?
There's a few of us, yeah.
So see, I know Bob Beek, who's retired, was there. Where are you?
I'm upper left, right next, right there.
There's mine.
Hugh Hurlow's in the front and on the right. There, and Greg McDonald's in the back above him to the left.
Greg was a cop.
There's a few of us.
There's Greg.
Next
They
station.
get
Over
a
2
little
more.
Farther over.
Over 2 more, no, to the right.
Oh, to the
He's
right.
3rd in from the left, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, and Mark Milligan is front row, just left of center.
Oh, yeah.
Right there.
And Baj's right there to the right too,
Baja's where?
right next to Mark.
On the way, right there.
Oh, man. That's okay.
Jeff Quick, I think, is up there.
Lee Allison, former director, is next to Baj there too.
Right there, that's, yeah.
That's 25 years.
That's 25 years.
Yeah.
Is Grant Willis not in this picture? He should be in that.
He's out napping.
He's probably out now. Jeff Quick is in here. Jeff Quick, Karen Floyd. Where's Jeff? You just know he's in here.
I think it's at the top left. That one.
Oh, yeah,
I think
there's
that's him. No, to that one more over. That
Right
one.
there.
I think that's Jeff.
Yep, wow. So anyway, so there's a few of us, not me, but people have been around. Okay. Anyway, there's us today. Anyway, good group. We've been showing this slide. I don't know how many of you've seen this. We use this in our interviews now. The DNR is really driving hard the core values of what drives DNR, and they're trying to get this message out to everybody. You know, we've made some pretty big efforts. You'll see if you get in our elevators, every month they're highlighting someone who exemplifies one of these principles. For the last 2 months, we've had somebody in the elevator on the wall out of all the people across all the divisions. DNR Ammon, our core center curator here was in it, and then Claire Decker, who worked on our energy resources, has been recognized. And we just thought I'd share that one as well. My staff, I always share my staff license plates they take pictures of. I love this one, Corvette, or RAV4. And then Jessica sent me this one, put hearts on their license plate, see if they get pulled over, but they love co-op canyons. So those were kind of fun. So anyway, so contract proposals, so all of these were sent around plus the 2 that went yesterday. So-
Okay, we have an item to go ahead and get a motion to approve the contract proposals, including the 2 that we received yesterday. Can I get a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Okay, and Riley, you want a second?
I'll second.
Okay. All right, all in favor of approving the contract proposals, including the 2 from yesterday, say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. All right, the contract proposals, including the 2 from yesterday, have been approved. And can we move forward with the minutes too as well? Okay. I would like to also have a motion to approve the minutes from the January 17th board meeting. Get a motion to.
Also move.
Okay.
Second.
Okay. All of those who will formally approve the minutes from the UGS board meeting from January 17th, please say aye.
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 Any opposed, say no. Thank you. The minutes from the January 17th board meeting have now been approved.
Okay, thank you. And I just want to comment on contract proposals. I appreciate it when you guys challenge us at times, you know, on some of those. And I think we did our best to dig out some information.
Very nice, yeah.
So it's okay to challenge us on our proposals. So we appreciate that.
There's some fantastic things the survey's doing.
Yeah.
So
The spectrum continues to grow,
yeah,
and that's
it's
pretty,
exciting.
it is exciting. So anyway, just want to make a comment on that. If you hadn't heard, Mike's retired, you probably knew that, right?
Yeah.
I just thought I'd put it up there, every time, but he'll be gone before we see him, before the next board meeting.
Right.
So that's.
You don't wanna come to one last board field trip?
What?
Wait,
A little quick on the trigger there. He's got plans.
not that I haven't really enjoyed board field trips, as well as the meetings. I mean, really, yeah, it's been a pleasure working with you all. I'll miss it, and miss you.
So anyway, thank you, Mike, for your service. And then Baja she's in Poland for like 2 months and plans to retire as soon as she gets back. Her husband's over there in some sort of a postdoc or a sabbatical or doing something. But anyway, Baja's been around. She was in the original, in the 1999 picture. She's been around a long time. So then new hires. And I'm gonna introduce Darlene. Say hello, Darlene.
Wow.
This is Darlene. You wanna say something? Say hello?
Hi, everybody. I've met a couple of you. Rick Chestnut and I have worked together for many years in a couple different aspects, and Elissa was part of my interview team, so thank you very much. Actually, really thrilled to be joining the UGS. I've worked hand in hand with the UGS on hazards mapping work and with your field mapping team on, I was a county geologist for some years. I just think it's a top-notch organization with really good people, and the leadership, has really, I think, taken this organization in some new directions. So thanks to Mike and to Bill for really setting the stage for this. I also appreciate that there's a succession opportunity here and that there's time to overlap with Mike, because I have a lot to learn about what's going on here. And I think if I was walking in cold, it'd be a whole different, opportunity. So thanks to Mike and Bill for creating a succession plan. Mike has some big shoes to fill. Don't run away too fast.
I'll be around.
Anyway,
I look forward to working with the board over the next years. So thank you.
thank you, Darrell, for joining us. Yeah, so, I have the rest board may or may not know, but Elissa sat on our interview panel. And Becky had volunteered to, but she had to be in the news. And how many saw the newspaper article on her ski adventures?
Oh my God.
The New York Times did an article on, you saw that?
It was so good.
Yeah.
It was
On
so
our,
good.
on our ski group up out there.
Yeah.
And that fell the same day we were doing interviews.
Oh,
Yeah, so my husband really wanted to be interviewed, which he was, and anyway.
So
what a
anyway,
fun group.
we thank Becky for being willing
Yeah.
to. So I understand the family.
It was really a good story.
So anyway, we thank those. So like I said, Dlin will be starting officially the 29th of April and coming on board there. So we designed that intentionally to have some overlap with Mike. Make it much easier. A couple of geotechs, their TL's kind of part-time student, but I put their names up there. They started in the last week or so. Diane has been running our wetlands program, right? Program's the wrong word, group, section, for a long time. But the state has this higher article. It's really hard to have this career progression. They get locked into job titles. And so we've done this before, technically our geology tracks require a PG license, but there's a title there called senior scientist and program manager. But Diane is a biologist, I think is her background.
Biology.
Ecosystem, ecology, biology. So it didn't quite fit. And so we've had this job title called program specialist. But it kind of plateaued out. And so we worked with our HR folks to rewrite that definition so that certain individuals won't have to have a PG license, but can still be called a senior scientist. So we've been working with HR to try and improve the career tracks for some of our internal people. But Diane's been great, so this was a solution that we came up with. Our insights places will finally be coming. Finally got through the interview process. It took us a long time, but they're gonna start in August. First coming out of Alaska, out of Fairbanks. I'm not sure I want to spend another winter in Fairbanks months. We've been to Fairbanks, Riley. You've been a lot of places. I've been to Anchorage quite a few times, but I've never been to Fairbanks. But
I almost have to be military or visiting somebody military.
yeah. So anyway, she has a lot of experience with INSAR data, which is, we're excited about. We're also hiring a new hazards geologist. If you may remember, Emily Clever moved from our hazards group over to our mapping program, so we're backfilling there. That person is coming out of school, I think University of Arizona, starts in May. And Mike's gonna talk about this. I'm gonna just skip these. He sent me a PowerPoint after I made my slides, so he'll talk about our AASG a little bit later. But some great field trips. Both for guests and for our folks. So I'm just gonna jump into the program now, if that's okay, and go through them. So energy, minerals, carbon capture, storage, assessment projects are a big deal. There's a lot of funding out there. We've got some DOE funded projects. This particular one is a 2-year project. It was designed to be 4 state surveys only, but we're contracting with some folks at the U to help us out on that. So that's a 2-year project. You'll notice that we have the anthropology and sociology departments. There are some DOE requirements about working with the public and education and diversity and inclusion, those sorts of things that are required in the grants to be a component. So that's where the sociology department comes involved.
And how about anthropology? Is it for,
How it affects human lives.
okay.
Yeah. So anyway, it's gonna be a kind of a broad project, a lot of cool stuff going on. The USGS a few weeks ago called, I guess they've been working with Andrew. Huh? Alunite, remember that term?
Oh, yeah, Dr. Nikowski from the University of Utah, yeah.
I don't know him.
Goes way back.
I know where the town of Alunite is. Anybody know where Alunite is? How many knows that there's a town called Alunite in Utah?
Now we know.
Now you know.
Marysville.
South, very good.
Yeah.
Sam's,
Where is it?
just south of Marysville.
Oh.
There's a place called the Deer Trail Mine, if you've ever heard of that, and it's right next to it. But they, during World War I and II, they mined alunite down, all these little hills south of Marysville there.
Yeah.
And they used, was it World War I, they used it for potash. It's mainly a potash ore. In World War II though, they got the alumina out of it because they needed it for planes. It's not a great source, but it is a source. And so, anyway, the USGS has told Andy they're gonna give him funding to do potash. Like a week later, a storage shed company sent me an email and says, we've got 5 giant storage units filled with stuff from a company that was looking for alunite. It's been in our storage units for like 10 years. And they hadn't paid their bill in like 6 years. And so there's like 1,500 boxes of core. And then recirc stuff, there's probably another 800 bags that are all stored there, nicely organized. And they're trying to get rid of it. All the company's gone mostly bankrupt. Huh?
All from Pike County, or is this
More from down by Milford. This is actually Milford.
Oh, it is Milford.
Yeah. Blonde Mountain, if you've heard of that.
Uh-huh.
Down by Blonde Mountain. So anyway, there were maps, and so when I got the email, I happened to be in Joseph, and it's just about an hour and 15-minute drive. So I just zipped over to Milford last week to look at it, because they said they had some stuff. Who knows what that means? So I thought I'll just go over and look at it, and I went through just storage unit, with these nice shelves, and so they want to get rid of it. They want us to take it all. We're not sure we want it all, but the company hasn't responded to any emails or phone calls for at least 2 years. So I haven't made a bill in 6 years. So we may end up with a bunch of core. That's related for it.
That's a 64,000.
There's the man in the back.
I'm sure I can make one.
This is all going to the northern shed?
I don't know where it'll go. That's where most of the stuff is. So Riley, we'll just go to the northern shed. Kind of what we're doing is stuff that we haven't pulled in a long time is slowly moving north. Stuff that we use more often will stay here. Did I get that right, Anna?
Yeah, and the real big issue with it is it's not really ours. It's a FEMA building that they've given to forestry fire and state lands to store some of their emergency equipment. So at any point, the feds will either come and take it back, or they may give it to the state. But currently, it's a temporary solution for
Yeah, it is.
storage.
But we take what we can get at this point. every time we ask, we suggest that we expand this building, like
They moved the boats closer to her.
I know, there's a lot more out there than used to be.
Anyway, I just thought the timing was interesting, the US just had this interest and this magical donor shows up out of nowhere, with a wealth of information. We did a pilot study in that area here in the colored area off of Antelope Island last year on Baffin LiDAR. And so now we have funding to do the entire Great Salt Lake and Bear Lake. So that's out for bid now. So under state contracts, we gotta get 3 bids, and there's 3 contractors in the state. And I think Mike's hoping to have that ready to go, at least have the bids back before June. So anyway, so that's moving forward. We'll talk about this a little bit later, but we got approached by a member of the legislature to write a request for appropriation of $400,000 to do more critical minerals work. Basically, none of our building blocks that we proposed to the governor were put in the governor's budget. So nothing we asked for even happened. But this thing shows up and it did get approved, so.
And it was just a redistribution of funding that was already.
And we stole it from wildlife, I think. The legislature took it out of funds that wildlife had and gave it to us.
So it's not new money.
Not new money, but it was money that was sitting in some account. It felt like they weren't spending it fast enough, I guess. I don't know. But anyway,
We'll take it.
we'll take it. So that'll be it. It was given as one time, but we're hoping to stretch that over 3 years. Here was another interesting one, again, we may talk, I put it here, but the legislature passed a bill requiring the oil, gas and mining to do a full statewide assessment of aggregates. And in the original version of the bill, it had reported to be delivered by September of this year.
Wow.
And everyone went, whoa, wait a minute, you can't do that. This is like, should be a multi-year project, and there was no funding initially. So what eventually passed was, they got to take some money out of what they call a restricted account, but they still have to deliver a preliminary report in November. And it's supposed to have economics and the mapping, and I still remember a member of one of the committees challenging the bill sponsor, can you really get this done that fast? And the bill sponsor says, I have full confidence in the DNR. Their ability."
What's the underlying purpose? What are they, so are they worried about the availability of aggregates or?
There's a huge demand for aggregates. I mean, our population is expected to close to double next 20 years, something like that. Can't remember the exact number, but it's a lot. And what do you need? Everyone needs cement in those aggregates. There's been issues with trying to get aggregates out of Parley's Canyon. Salt Lake County made a map of some of their aggregates, but not everybody agrees. So at the state level, they want to kind of get an idea of what's out there. So, but what that means is that nobody at OGM knows how to go map aggregates. So our folks are gonna be engaged to do the mapping part of that work. The good news is this is a project that Andrew's wanted to do for a long time. Bad news is how much can we get done? And, in the time frame that's allotted. I suspect it'll end up being much longer, but we'll get a good start on it. We had a couple of bills that we did get passed, and this was a big one for us. We've asked for this for a number of years, but after last year's landslides, we proposed a bill that said, let's require all municipalities, counties, whatever, whenever they get a geologic report as part of the building permit process, that they have to submit that to us. And we can then archive all those reports. We can use those to expand the detail of our hazard maps. And so that bill actually passed. We got a good bill sponsor, and he just ran that thing right through. Wow. And so we didn't ask for any funding this year. We might do that next year, but But, it was easier to send it through without what they call a fiscal note. So we got the bill approved. So that'll make a big difference. And you may hear a little bit more about some of these from Mark, but it was in your notes. But the Seismic Safety Commission, which has been around forever, for 25 years. And the sunset date is always 5 years from when it gets passed. And this year they chose not to renew, to extend the sunset date another 5 years. So the Seismic Safety Commission will go away as of January 1st next year.
And what was the driver behind that?
That's the rationale.
Yeah, we're still trying to totally. It went right through the House. It got to the Senate, made it through the Senate committee. There was some objection, but there were a few senators that they don't want to be told that we have a problem because they don't feel like they have the funds to fix them. Yeah, it's, I'm trying to be careful here. But, so when it got to the Senate floor, it's already got a lot of opposition, so they did something, they basically tabled it, I've forgotten. Then they tabled it and just let it lay there until the last day, next to the last day of the session, brought it back up and they couldn't get enough votes to pass. So I think they're just, bottom line is there are people that don't want to be told what they should be doing. Because if they don't know, these are matter of public record. They're afraid that if we're told what we need to fix and we don't, then we'll be liable. Think about that, but they already know. Yeah. I'm not sure that, I think you're actually, and my personal opinion is that you're affecting you're increasing your chance for being liable by choosing to ignore it. But what's funny is the state geologist in Idaho told us a story about after the earthquakes they had some years ago up there in the Sawtooths. It's like a magnitude 6. And the state geologist went to the Forest Service and said to them, look, you got a bunch of trail up here and there's a lot of rocks, loose rocks. You should close these things down. And the Forest Service said to him, if we do that, then we're acknowledging that we know there's a problem. And if we know that we know there's a problem, then we'll be held liable. So we're better off to do nothing. I don't understand that mentality.
I don't either.
But they already know, like,
Yeah.
it's very well established and it seems like it's mostly a financial driver, right?
Yeah, so there are people that would like to see this come up again next year in the legislature, and if we need to get out an all-out effort, you may hear or see about one. But that one went down. So most things related to earthquake preparedness went away. All got shut down this year in the legislature. Hazards, we sponsored a couple of working group meetings in February. Veterinary Falls, they hold these like back to back, one day at Veterinary Falls, the other one Basin and Range. Steve's busy getting the aerial imagery database up, a couple more years on that project. Groundwater and wetlands, you may have seen the table in the notes, but 3 brand new EPA grants, totaling almost $1 million. And the nice thing about an EPA grant, state map is a 50-50 cost share. EPA grants are 25-75. We don't have to put up quite as much money to get the program. It's been put on a little bit of pause, and I'm gonna let Ben and Dlin talk about that later today. I'll leave it there. I don't want to steal his thunder out of you. I'm here about. But I'll back up on that. The grants that we wrote, they funded them at 100% of what we asked for, which was a pretty good achievement. Big research project that went out this year was the groundwater of Johns and Emory Valleys. This includes the Bryce Canyon area. This actually was one where we got subpoenaed to testify and provide depositions because there's a lot of debate about how to develop around Bryce Canyon and hotels and like the septic tank density, what county? It's like 1 for every, 3,000, and one septic tank per every 2,000 acres. Because the bedrock is so shallow. There are some places where it's a couple hundred acres, but it's somewhere it's several thousand acres. I don't remember the exact numbers, but this study figures that kind of stuff out. And how much groundwater and how old it is and where it's coming. Because the water down in this area is pristine. It is really good. So a lot of groups are gonna use that data. Bryce Canyon City's gonna use it, the county's gonna use it, the state's gonna use it. Other water projects in progress, Long Valley and Matheson Wetlands, that's been going on for several years. The water group is heavily involved in Great Salt Lake projects. There's multiple projects that we're working on. Geological mapping, paleontology. We set out a goals. Most of the UGS staff, no, but most of DNR, let me back up. When Joel Ferry came in, he says, we need to provide more leadership type training to all of our staff. Working, the directors and then down to, so we've done like 3 or 4 versions of this, working our way down. But one of the goals we had set out for the UGS was, it says, get it down to 3 numbers. And our 3 numbers were, Mike? 100, which was 100% of funded projects delivered on time, which has been a big challenge for us. Okay, what's our next? 10 to increase our public awareness and engagement.
10% year-over-year.
Year-over-year.
And 1.
And 1. And so the 10 was, we saw numbers like in our staff meeting that our traffic on our web pages has gone up like 30+% year-over-year. So we've met that goal. We haven't met the 100 yet. And the 1 was to pass 1 significant piece of legislation. We actually got 2 passed this year. We'll talk about the other one a little later. So anyway, pretty good goals.
That was in your strategic plan.
Yeah. So those numbers there. But to that 100 goal, Stefan's really trying to get rid of this no cost extension. Like every year, we're not quite done on time. We got this merry-go-round. Every year, we're asking for these no cost extensions from the USGS. So he's trying to change the timing on the workflows. He's putting limits on it to get it and crank it through and doing a great job. So anyway, you'll see that in your notes as well that you talked about. That's the motivation behind that. But if we can get on a cycle where we're delivering on time, it's much easier to start the next project rather than being behind the curve all the time. A lot of 7.5 quad mid. I just looked at mid-bill yesterday. That's the new mid-bill map. But you can see there's quite a few maps in progress right now. And talking about state map, each year we just get more and more. Our proposals, our folks are writing great proposals. And so it's basically at 1 point, it's at 6.645 times 2, 1.9-ish, 1.09, I can't remember. 1.29, 1.29, that's what it is. So anyway, we got that was just announced a couple weeks ago. We got that award. And then Paleo, they're working on a couple of big projects to get our database, keep it, we're trying to update that database, trying to get it all digital. And then a lot more work in the northern part of the San Juan Festival. And Jim got invited to the Alta Club, which is a bunch of high, I don't know what you want to call them, but kind of big business leaders and stuff. It's good. But I got invited as well, so my wife and I went and joined that night. But hey, who has not heard Jim speak? You have not?
No.
You ought to, if you ever get the chance to hear Jim speak, you should go. He'll rattle off about 1,000 names of dinosaurs in about 15 minutes, and you're just kind of going, you feel like this big rush of wind just blowing by you. But he knows it, and he's excited, and he's passionate about it. So when he writes grants nowadays, people are he's well known around the world. I put this busy, GIO, Geological Information Outreach, they've been running hard. Our 75th anniversary is, like I said, is coming up. We're highlighting that in our May issue of survey notes. You'll see pictures, and there's a lot of comments from people that have been here for a long time, kind of what they remember. Mike put together a timeline that highlights a lot of the stuff. You build on one that was used before, right? Yeah. So anyway, next week is a great shakeout. So what are you all gonna do at 10:15 next Thursday morning?
Run outside.
Run outside or jump under your desk? So anyway, Utah runs this every year, so we've kind of taken a more active role this year to promote it inside of DNR. We've signed up to be a sponsored agency. I will tell you that, did you watch any of the news clips after the Taiwan earthquake? I can't remember which channel, KSL, Channel 2, I don't remember. One of them interviewed some people there. And because for a 7.4, it's right in the city. And how many people died? I think 10? Yeah. Somewhere in there. I saw 8 initially, but I think it went up a little bit. Not much. And they showed pictures of downtown. You always saw the pictures of the building that had fallen over.
Yeah.
But the rest of the town, it's pretty much intact. And all the interviews with the people talk about them being prepared. And they talk to the kids, school kids. The school kids said, yeah, we weren't scared. We knew what to do. We've been taught. And they had some sort of hats they would put on, I guess, to protect from debris falling in, and they all crawled under their desks and they all knew what to do. And that's kind of the big thing that we're trying to do, is get the word out. If you're better prepared, we'll be more resilient to this.
And the correct answer to Bill's question, drop cover and hold on.
Not run outside.
Well, if you're right next to the door, right there, maybe. Thank you, Mike. Hold on, that's a good one.
Cover, hold on.
Yeah, you understand. So anyway, let's see. Geo heritage sites, we saw that. Jackson went out, we're working with the Utah STEM, what they call Community Alliance Program. Some call it STEM CAP, but basically kids that are in detention. He's put together 4 lectures on like geosciences. He's already given one, and they got great reviews. The kids stuck around after the class so they could keep learning more. But he had their attention. So it's one of the reasons we brought Jackson over as part of this outreach. Just an example of how our outreach efforts are going. We did 6,000 copies of the calendar. Made a little bit of a profit on it.
Oh, good.
Which is good, helps our costs.
That's fantastic.
I gotta turn in some pictures for that.
That's a great profit, by the way, not just a
Yeah.
little bit of profit. That's a great
Considering
profit.
though that my bookstore runs in the red, this could phrase that in the red cost.
Boy, that's a great profit.
It's a great profit. You can double your money.
Yeah.
And we use,
Tell me how to do that.
okay. And then a ton of publications went out, and you'll see these listed. And in your notes, there's like a link, if you want to go read any of these articles. I didn't put that all on the screen up here, but the Bonneville Flats work that we've done has generated a ton of interest. Everywhere from the New York Times to Washington Post and, local news stations.
I spent a half hour in the bookstore about a week ago or so, picking up some maps, and the guy, I don't remember his name, in there was just absolutely fantastic.
Peter?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
Boy, it was good. Yeah, it was great.
Peter's been good on that.
I brought it, I had a guy that wanted to go look for maps, and he was really impressed, so it was fantastic.
It's good. Pues echando raíces en tierra de terremotos en manual para terremotos in Utah. Who knows what that is?
Putting down roots in earthquake territory, your manual of earthquakes in Utah.
Yeah. So we've had this putting down, very good, translator. So we've had that putting down roots in earthquake country in Utah out for a long time. So we translated to Spanish in the last year, working with the Division of Emergency Management. And so we've got a bunch of printed copies in Spanish now, and it's up on our webpage and on what they call earthquakes.gov, .utah.gov, which we wrote for Division of Emergency Management. We maintain it. But we've got a Spanish version up there now as well.
How much requests do you get for more? I mean, I understand that, that's really important to be in Spanish. Do you get requests for any other materials in Spanish?
I don't know that we have.
How many requests we get?
Requests.
There's definitely demand
Yeah.
for it, yeah.
Just wondering.
We view this as important from the public service spectrum.
Right,
Yeah.
that makes a lot of sense.
Because there's a lot of people that don't realize that we live in earthquake country still,
Mhm.
as I bring people in. You and I know that. You know, so. But that's a topic that Ben's gonna talk about though, a little bit later, Ben Dlin,
Okay.
our contract specialist, so. And then we did our study out on feasibility of an earthquake early warning system. That was another one we proposed. That got printed and put out this year. They also sell park passes there. We only get 10% of what they sell them for, so our profit there isn't nearly as good as the calendars. But we did 2 booths up at the Hill this year. I say in the Hill during the legislative session. Yeah, you know, every day there's something different going on up there if you've never been up there. But outdoor recreation day in the Hill was a new one for us. The maps on the Hill we also did. Our bookstore manager, Tori, is probably gonna move over to the hazards program. She really wants to be a geologist, more so than a bookstore manager. But I will say that having geologists, for a long time, our bookstore did not have geologists. There were people that could handle a bookstore, but they didn't know really anything about the topic. Having geologists in there, as you just referenced, we feel it's made a huge difference. It did.
That's been something of kind of a gateway for you guys, so you had several move geology roles from the bookstore, right?
We have, Jackson came out of the bookstore. Jackson and Tori were hired together and came in. That was our first shift, to go to geologists as opposed to just someone that could, you know, be a barista or whatever. I don't know. You know, work in a retail environment. So now they're both have moved into other roles, which is good. Shifting gears to data management. 3 years ago, we did not have a data management program. We had a small group of people in our geologic information outreach that worked under Mike, who was the program manager at the time, I think. He did some of our coding. Now it's a good sized group, but we manage 727 web pages or something like that. Was that in there? I can't remember it's in this one. I know it was in the report they gave to our staff meeting. I think that's where I saw it. But the point is they are really busy on working on all kinds of stuff. So we got money a year ago to work on a dashboard of Utah's groundwater. That's set to be released mid-year. The map portal, they're trying to bring all the data from all these disparate databases in a common open source database. So now we can query, if you wanna make a query for Navajo, you can find where Navajo is, or you could do a query on stuff that's of a certain age, rocks. So trying to expand those new features on that. They're upgrading the hazard portal. What else? They wrote our homepage for the AASG meeting, which was, I put in this, the state geologist from Wyoming sent me a note and says, you really set a high bar for future meetings. Because this group does a really good job. And you hit that register button and we linked up with a site that will process the credit cards for you. Takes care of all the, you'll talk more about that later, maybe. So anyway, but they worked on that. There was a big initiative, the USGS funded a project to identify problematic place names. You've probably heard this, like Squaw Peak and those kinds of names, and trying to how do we get rid of some of that? Trying to figure out how many do we have?
I don't think they've been very effective.
Yeah, so how big's our list now? 600?
We're meeting with Mackenzie next week.
We're meeting next week to see what the final list looks like.
I might pass on, so Squaw Peak and Provo, the city of Provo tried to change that a couple times, once in the 80s, and again, late 90s, and the feds told them no. Then they got changed by the feds with no local input,
Yeah,
which means that nobody wants to use their name.
and there's a new name signed down.
There's a new name on it.
Can't pronounce it anymore.
Right, and so as a process, I don't think it's been very successful.
So we've been engaged to try and figure it out from our level, particularly for our geologic maps. So we're meeting with Mackenzie next week on that. So they get new websites for the putting down routes and the Bonneville salt flats. That'll be a storyboard sort of a thing, story map they call it. Well, that's almost done, I think. Is that at your level yet for review, Mike?
Not yet.
Not yet, but it's coming.
Mackenzie's working on putting down routes, website now.
Okay. She's included in that, and I showed it to the legislature, an animation how an earthquake early warning works. It's really slick, what they build into that website. Again, they're just doing so much. They're trying to go and fix a lot of errors, in our maps that are online. If a link doesn't work anymore, the new locations for the Rock Hunter app's getting more and more locations added to it. They're a pretty big group of people. So we're probably racing ahead here a little fast. We might need our people earlier. Anyways, a lot of behind the scenes work that a lot of people work on. Marshall itemized the individuals, if you want to see who's doing that work, it's in the written version. They're doing some really good stuff. So I have a quick summary here. Russ will talk a little bit later about finances, but I showed you that slide except for the blue in January. Everything we proposed didn't get supported. It was interesting, they called it what was the term, one of the state senators called it a socks and underwear year. There just wasn't a lot of extra money to do a lot of different things. So we got the basics at Christmas time. So I heard in numbers for for every dollar requested this year, there was $152 requested. For every dollar they funded, there were $152 of requests. It was a a lot of ask, not a lot of, it's not like they spent a lot of money, but there was a lot more requests. And they were able to fund. Pretty big number. We did get that 400,000. I mentioned that earlier. Aqueduct resilience, which we had proposed and the governor put in his budget, didn't get funded. They swept that out. So like I said, almost everything related to earthquake stuff. The Seismic Safety Commission got killed. There were proposals by the Seismic Safety Commission to fund $4 million to ramp up work on reinforced masonry repairs to school buildings. That did not get passed. The $5 million we requested to do earthquake early warning didn't get funded. So just about anything and everything related to earthquakes got cut out. And that's a challenge, because it's gonna come. It's gonna happen. I don't think we'll be as fortunate as Taiwan in the 7. If we had a 7, I think we'll have a lot more. So anyway, now let me get done. So this is where we're gonna hit our break at 10, and it's only already there. Is anyone complaining?
No.
Okay, so we might need to make a couple of calls.
One thing we could do now, if it's all right.
Sure.
Not on the agenda, but Bill and I did complete the strategic plan, the UGS internal strategic plan, just in the past week, and I made some copies. So you can pass those out, board members, take one if anybody else wants to look at it, feel free. We kind of have two plans going in parallel. There's one at the department level, and there's one that we just have internally. So this is the internal one. So we talked about it at the last board meeting. Appreciate the input that we got from you all. Okay, yeah, and then we've got some 75th anniversary stickers here too, if you want to see.
They're beautiful.
Good hard hat sticker.
There's more where these came from if you need one.
Oh, I have a lot. So Ken's still with us, I see.
Yeah.
So, did you want one of these, Arlene?
You know, I think I do. Is it okay?
Yeah,
if I take
yeah,
a look at
yeah.
this?
You
didn't get one?
No, they got passed down here, but.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you.
Sorry, darling.
She's gonna need to know this pretty soon.
That's
Yeah.
why, like, if you guys are gonna look this over or talk about it here in a minute, I'll stay for that, so.
You wanna make any comments here, Mike?
Oh, well, you know, one thing that came up at the last meeting is sort of tracking progress and kind of how, you know, close we're able to have our activities line up with what we've got in the plan. For the DNR level one, we kind of did that. We had a meeting with Kim Wells, the department PIO, who kind of coordinates that department strategic plan. And yeah, we have a whole bunch of them that we were able to kind of check off. Yeah, we did this, we did this, we did this. But we will need to, as we move ahead, kind of set up sort of a formal way of monitoring progress.
I might follow the next deputy director.
Yeah, I think it might. But you know, you'll see there's a section in there for each of the programs. And as they develop their individual work plans for their employees, they're kind of using this, you know, as a guide. So that, I mean, just at kind of the ground level is a way to kind of make the work line up with the plan. The DNR strategic plan, as of last year, our funding requests, our building block requests have to tie directly into goals and objectives in that plan. So, you know, we're trying to make this really reflect the really key things that we might be, you know, needing funding for down the road, and having those then show up in that DNR level plan.
So I brought up on the screen and yeah. Here's the DNR one, and we take a few elements out of our larger one and put it in the DNR one. This thing goes to the governor's office. And what's driving this is that all funding requests that we make going forward need to tie into things that are in our strategic plan. So in other words, if I don't have in my strategic plan something about paleo, I better not be asking the governor for money to do paleo work. And so that's kind of the example. And so what we did, I'm gonna see if I can jump to what we did. Okay, so here's geology. So this is what went out last year. And so we went through and I made some comment. So I made a comment for this coming year that we add a goal here for paleontology. So I've actually inserted one in here now. And I've submitted that back up. Because we keep talking about it out in public, so why didn't it show up on our strategic plan? So we added it to our strategic plan.
And you'll see that in this one on page 10.
So one we added. So here's an example where conduct select water quality studies, Great Salt Lake Basin integrated plan. We've got the monitoring wells, we got 4 and drilled out by the bases of Great Salt Lake this last year. Actually, I've done it the last couple of months. So here's on our wetlands work, we got our new EPA grant, so we kind of comment on how we're making progress and all those things. So this is when we, this isn't under health, we call it, they have these 5 basic themes at the DNR level. One is health. So we've added some things about earthquake early warning here that we're gonna put in. Geotechnical databases,
Does it include something specific to the Great Salt Lake, the work you're doing on the Great Salt Lake? Your strategic plan here?
And this one, let's see.
Because that's
We refer to the Great
There is a-
Salt Lake.
Page 11 there.
Page 11.
Yeah,
Mhm.
It should.
and it relates to that integrated plan, the basin plan.
Because we're working with water rights, water resources,
Yeah.
and the Great Salt Lake,
Yeah. Because
Great
it's
Salt Lake
covered
Basin.
wet, yeah, there's the Great Salt
Yep.
Lake.
So like I said, we picked a few of these out of here. Because you're not gonna put this giant thing in the DNR one. They're asking for a few highlights. So that's something that we have added. So this says, here's a new objective. And I've added this in here now instead of about earthquake early warning. Public lands, this is a new one here, a new thing. To go after money for payment towers. So we've given this some suggestions of what to add. Our work is ongoing, we've got the DOE funding for that one. So anyway, this is kind of how we're tracking it and feeding it back. Letting them know that we're working on these things. Our current UCRC is running out of space. So if we ask for money, then here's critical minerals work, we've got the 400,000. So it gives you an idea of how we're doing with the strategic plan and how we're trying to report back and update it, because it should change. So like I said, coming into this year, we're going for next year, realize if we're gonna ask for money, we better make sure these things are good. Any other quick thing you wanna add, Mike?
Do you have internal mechanisms of how to report on this specific plan, like your teams on objectives, or do you just monitor that in general?
Here, here's the,
Yeah, like I said, it's more general, I think, at this point, that's something that we're gonna need to, I think.
here's the,
Something more specific.
Mike's working on a worksheet that they, actually Jackie designed for us to document on a regular basis how to do that. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, for the
Yeah.
department one, yeah.
Cause I told you now that Mike's working on it.
So does this address the core lab here too? I mean, your own strategic plan, I mean, if this is the document that kind of,
So it'd be under energy and minerals.
under the strategic minerals.
You know, there may be, well, there probably are, specifics that maybe aren't in here at this point.
Well, so I was just wondering, you know, if the legislatures are gonna go back and look at this thing when funding requests are made.
Yeah, it's not in the goals and objectives.
Yeah.
If you go to objective 1.1 and go to strategy 1.1.6, top of page 9. Top of page 9. So strategy 1.1.6, manage and curate the collection housing in Utah. Doesn't go into more detail than that, but that's, at least it's in here.
Yeah. Yeah,
It's a single.
Well, it would be awful to,
Any one of these could be expanded into a much bigger.
Yeah. and then pulled up into the DNR plan, because that's the one,
And they'll review.
yes, yes. And we've talked in the past about putting in a building block for core center expansion and stuff, and we just kind of kicked it down the road a little bit, trying to figure out the best way to.
But I will tell you, the DNR, typically the way building blocks in the past worked, up until say just the last year, was that we would put together our proposals and then they would go through the DNR leadership before I was allowed to submit it to the governor's office of planning and budget. So I had to go through the DNR filter. And when I put it there, they wouldn't, I couldn't get past my DNR leadership because I would have to get more space. And nobody, the other divisions did not want to give up. What was it Ammon said? The canoes and the boats move closer to the building. It's the sort of thing that happens. So we've never got, this last year, they just said submit it all. Submit what you want. You know, the DNR leadership didn't put a filter on it.
Bill, I've been wondering about that. I mean, it's very convenient to have the core center next to the DNR. Obviously, we love it. However, if we're not ever gonna be able to get more space here, has there been consideration in an off-site location where you could centralize everything and then have more, I mean, because we're pretty tight on viewing space, one of the bigger issues.
You're a frequent user, so you know the issue.
Yeah.
No, you are. And we've talked about it in this meeting before. And there were some suggestions. One suggestion was there's plenty of warehouse space in Price.
Oh, remember that, yeah.
Remember that discussion? Could we move everything up north? You know, to Clearfield, Centerfield, where the.
But then you have the same federal issue, right, where that could go away at any time.
Yeah. So I'm not sure how likely that is. It's an old World War II staging facility, is what it is. But yeah, we've had those conversations. I will tell you that Mike Vandenberg is not a fan of this being anywhere but on this piece of property. I've tried to have that conversation. Let's look broader. Can we go somewhere else? I will tell you, you know what I worry about? If they decide to build a ballpark over there. There, yeah, my directions right here. I wonder, this is just Bill Keach speculating. This is not any knowledge that I have from anybody anywhere. How long does state will actually maintain ownership of this area?
How what?
How long they would retain ownership? In other words, they could probably sell this property off and move us all somewhere else.
Cool County's nice.
But you see what my point is, if you put in a ballpark there,
Yeah.
this is gonna be prime real estate, and our building's getting old over there anyway. They say, okay, it is time to really get serious and rethink how we're gonna do this, which then requires us to move it all. And I know when EGI moved their court facility, because they have a court facility, and they were downsizing because of cost, it cost them almost $100,000 just to move their small court facility.
Yeah, you'd be lucky to get off the top.
Oh, I know, it'd be probably 10 times that. It's gonna be a major cost. So yes, I've thought about it, and we've had those discussions. I also know that if I do move it, there's a huge expense. It's gotta get funded to move it.
And I think Mike's right that, you know, Carbon County would mean that all the, right now, one of your huge users is all the local universities, right? So in Carbon County, they just would not be as able to use it as they are now.
No, but you know, universities have been users, but they weren't frequent users as much as they are now. Before I got here, we made them pay to come. And a lot of schools couldn't afford to pay. So one of the first things we did when I got here was let's eliminate the fees for academia. Because we are a public institution, right? And we should be able to make those things available to our public institutions. Sure. So we did that, and that was, we started to see a lot more traffic.
You have students in here almost daily. They're a lot.
We have students working in here, and we got students. We have people, BYU Idaho brings their students down. Ohio State, I think, when they come up for their field camp, bring students through here. So
No,
I brought students from the U, and I'd have to pay them, part of the course that I did, but
I'm just wondering, so it's a problem, it's not going away. And
it's not going away.
It's been a problem for a long time, you're getting more and more cores just gradually being donated.
Yeah.
I don't know how.
We continue to drill holes. I mean, $1,500 a core. Shows up out of nowhere. What do you do with that? Call Ammon, 1-800-AMMON.
Who makes the decision on what not to take and what to take too? That's a tough one.
So on the alunite one, I'm gonna ask, I've gone down and looked at it, I took a picture of every box, so we know what the boreholes are, but probably Andrew will go down and look at it. But what we don't take, they'll put in the dumps, they'll haul it to the landfill. And I tell you, Mike, there was never a piece of core that Mike saw he didn't like. That's, am I right, Anna?
True. We have gotten some donations though, like, a fellow, last name Arnett, I don't remember his first name, but his family just called us up and said, we have a whole locker full of, I guess he had a storage unit, they didn't know, and they just hauled all this core here, and a bunch of it was from Nevada, but they had 0 core hole locations, so all we know is the town and the state that it came from, and nothing else, so that would be something that we don't take, things like that. But if it's from Utah and we have core hole data, we'll pretty much try and take
If we
it.
don't know where it's from, that's hard.
Yeah, that makes it almost useless data.
So what I found here is in the alunite, they were so organized. Every box, it's got a name and it's organized on the shelves.
What was the company? You remember?
It might have been, was it called? I don't remember. I can find it. But yeah, they were out there as subsidiaries and folks out of Canada. But they had local people in Salt Lake.
Yeah.
A lot of them were from out of state.
Yeah.
But I mean, their computers are wrapped up in saran wrap. Their files are there, their maps are there, their core cuttings are there, their cores are there, it's like their whole office, their printers. The rack to slide the blades in for the computers, it's all in this storage unit. So they locked up and went away. And the rental, there was one person they said they had some interest in maybe buying the remnants of the company, but when the storage company told them in arrears they owed about $50,000 in storage fees. I mean, imagine 6 years, 5 storage units. That can add up fast.
Yeah.
So I think we take our break now. I think we're good. I can probably jump to Russ, head of GSU.
Sure.
Yeah, what do you want to do?
Should we break for, till 9:50? Or do you want?
Okay, that's fine. It's 9:39 now, yeah. Yeah, 9:50 works for me.
Okay, does that give you a little time?
Yeah, we just need to see if we can come over here. And if not, we can move, Russ up a spot. That's okay. Okay. Take a break. Is someone gonna call you? Oh, is Cheryl going to do that?
What do you think, Russ, about that?
So, we want to get all 3 of those guys over.
Sure, just.
I would. Yeah. Yeah.
Is it the same one that was in the,
Yeah, I think we had a schedule.
oh, no, well, in the.
I think I told I even told Darlene, I think, plus or minus
we originally thought, so we're like at 20 minutes, right? For me?
Yeah, more or less.
Yeah.
That's what we'll try for, or less,
Or more.
okay.
You go for it.
All right.
We're your audience.
I decided in the fairly last minute to give a program overview, mostly focusing on groundwater. And then I'll talk about some work we're doing on Great Salt Lake groundwater flow. Bill, did you mention to them, this is the wetland crew, they just had Patrick do a really nice group photo of them. Did you mention Diane's promotion? And we now have, well, I'll go through some of the personnel changes in groundwater. There's been a lot. But suffice to say that these photos don't cover everybody, even close in the program now. It's really grown. And we do, as you know, have Paul be the awarded the Employee of the Year for last year. It's wonderful. From what I was told, that was like an instant, oh yeah, of course. After people saw the nomination. So, okay, next, who's doing the?
Me.
Okay. This is a summary of the changes in our program since 2021. All right, so it's been borderline overwhelming, but really positive. We've had a few people move to other opportunities. And we've had basically 3 new positions funded. So just last year, we hired 4 people. And 2 of them, well, through the process of 2 job searches. So we hired 2 people from each of the searches. So that reflects our funding, and this crew of new people has been, particularly outstanding in how they just come right in and are just really full parts of the program and are doing great, and they're wonderful colleagues. Okay. Oh, I should mention Lucy. I don't know if that was mentioned. She was with us for 18 years, I think. And then wanted to back off but not totally retire. So she's at a quarter FTE and it mainly does manuscript editing, which she's quite excellent at and has really noticeably improved our manuscripts as they've come through. And which include these 2 recently, a project that was funded by the Division of Forestry, Fire and State Lands to look at groundwater surrounding Great Salt Lake, kind of a preliminary big data compilation, and a much more comprehensive and 5-year project in the area adjacent to Bryce Canyon. And just kind of by coincidence, we've had a lot of projects wrapping up. So we've got a lot of publications coming through in the next half year or so. These are all probably gonna hit Bill's desk in the next 6 to 9 months. Including this one, you have next.
Do I already have that one?
You do, but I'll remind you.
You remind me again.
It's short.
Okay.
Okay. And then our budgets continued really strong. The only point here, your numbers are probably a little bit updated from this, but the point here is the green is kind of general funds. And then the rest, the blues and the orange are outside funds. So we're recording this about 50 or slightly better externally funded through various agreements, mostly through other state agencies, but also through federal. And this is the current project in Great Salt Lake we're working on. It's cooperative or among the University of Utah, Department of Geology and Geophysics, and ourselves, and the US Geological Survey. The focus is groundwater flow into Farmington Bay. You can see how dry and water starved it was a few years ago, and really still is. They have 2 graduate students at the U working on this, and myself and Aaron and some people, and Scott from Hennick from the USGS principally. So anyway, we're trying to get at we're trying to better quantify the groundwater flow into the lake bed. And part of the work is drilling new monitoring wells on these sites. It's physically challenging to put wells in there. It hasn't really been done before, so we're really generating brand new data at these sites. And that's, part of the work has been coring. We've collected cores to 100 feet, which I think will be really valuable, not just for this study, but for all of the lake chronology. By my guess, we go back to Little Valley. See, there was Cutler Dam and then Little Valley's older. Yeah, we have kind of three really discrete clay layers. We'll see. So, okay.
Hugh, what is it, your cores go to 100 feet, but wouldn't some of the inflows be much deeper than that? Yeah. Okay.
Yes, yes, that's what we're seeing. So go ahead. Okay, so the conceptual model is that studies by the University of Utah have found kind of an upper saline layer that seems to be perched on much fresher water. So we wanted to, and then if you go over to just where civilization is, the water generally has pretty low conductivity, so probably reflects the recharge and groundwater flow coming off of the Wasatch Front. But you get to about 20 or 30 feet here and you get below this saline layer. So what these dynamics are and what the flow paths are really part of the focus of this work. And we'll be presenting in more detail at the Great Salt Lake Issues Forum on this. Okay. So what we did, so we collected the cores, and the grad students at the U drilled holes in them, did, I guess it's rhizons. I haven't actually seen the process yet, but basically they can sample the core water chemistry at discrete locations in the core. And so these are the specific conductance in the x-axis versus depth profiles. So you can see that conceptual model kind of playing out. There's kind of an upper, still pretty saline, but less saline zone, and then a huge spike in salinity in kind of the 10 to 25 or more depth range. And then a very abrupt change. So by the time you're at about 40 feet, you're in fresh water, fresh. So that, and this likely represents the discharge from recharge along the Wasatch Front. This is at a different location. It's at the very north end of Tooele Valley, in fact, north of the freeway and the railroad tracks, if you're familiar with that area. And this does look different. So different processes, maybe a different amount of groundwater flux, but we're getting there. These are the three kind of really distinct clay layers I mentioned. So again, there'll be multiple benefits to this core in terms of unraveling lake history. Otherwise, it's mostly silty clay and clayey silt. But there are a few discrete sandy layers also that are very distinctive. Okay.
Were you able to date the actual age of the water?
Yes.
Deeper stuff?
I completely forgot the whole well thing here. Sorry about that. So we have nested piezometers right now at 4 different sites. And they're very low, the aquifer there is very low transmissivity, so these take a long time to reach equilibrium. But they have been sampled for geochronology and about all the tracers you can possibly think of. And a subset of these will become the first steps of the stages of what I'm terming the Great Salt Lake Groundwater Monitoring Network. So we'll instrument them and revisit them periodically. The rest of what I have is just detail, so if that's good enough.
You're done?
If you wish, I can keep going. Do you want to do research or program news?
You got the slides, you have the floor.
All right, let's go on what I already have. Yeah, so this is part of a talk I did at the Utah Water Users Workshop in St. George in about a month ago. It's just more a general view on groundwater flow at Great Salt Lake. So This is derived from that Zamora and Aiken grant paper published by the UGA earlier this year. They did a sweeping compilation of groundwater levels from the 1980s to the 2010s. And derived, they ended up having to bin groundwater levels into decadal time slots or time bins. So these are groundwater levels in the 2010s decade, which is the last decade they had enough comprehensive information to do this. So I know these aren't super visible, but the darker colors are higher groundwater levels and progressing to lower. So it's about what you would expect, showing a gradient that induces, in the groundwater levels, that induces groundwater flow toward the valley center and then out toward the lake. So I showed this as kind of evidence, if anybody disbelieved, there is evidence or a suggestion of major groundwater flow towards the lake. And what they did that I don't have here was they would draw like cross sections and use the Darcy law method, which just makes assumptions about the hydraulic properties of the aquifers and the hydraulic gradient, and estimates groundwater flow through an area that you define. So that's how they got at a quantitative estimate of groundwater flow from all these different valleys to the lake. And then the dark blue areas are about perpendicular to the contours, which is roughly, accounting for heterogeneity in the aquifer. That's the generalized groundwater flow direction. And this syncs very well with previous work by the University of Utah where they dated groundwater. This is the kind of the cottonwood area of the Wasatch Front. And they showed that groundwater right adjacent to the mountain front is younger and becomes progressively and systematically older toward the valley center. So those are, besides intuitively, most of the snow falls on the Wasatch Front, and you think that's continued groundwater to flow to Great Salt Lake, it would be coming from there, but there's direct evidence of it. And you can use these to quantify those flow rates better. Okay. So in St. George, I killed all my time just delving into this slide, and so I won't do it again. I had Emily was like flagging me from the, anyway, it's a complicated system once you start to look at it. This is a conceptual model, but most of the recharge to the system occurs either on the bedrock, through the bedrock, or in the alluvial fans right adjacent to the mountain front. And there, the basinville sediments are not well sorted. These are alluvial fans and all intermixed streams and debris flows. And then from when the lake stand was high, you've got delta deposits, right? So there's not a lot of distinction between the aquifers and predominantly coarse grained, so the water can move downward into the deeper basinville aquifer, and it can separate and flow more shallowly, or it can go deep into the main aquifer. So somewhere outboard, you can kind of differentiate two aquifer systems. And above those two are an unconfined shallow aquifer that's a lot more susceptible to contamination and is in direct contact with the streams that run from the mountains toward the lake. So there's groundwater exchange and flow at quite a variety of levels, and this outboard area is the least known now, and that's where we're focusing. And then, of course, we can't be in a groundwater and wetlands program without mentioning the wetlands, but they're fringing streams and a very ecologically important band fringing the Great Salt Lake. And so we don't know very well what the groundwater contributions to those are. We can work on it. Okay.
Hugh, once that groundwater comes out of that mountain, gets into the valley aquifers that move toward the Great Salt Lake, how does it report to the surface of the Great Salt Lake? Is that through springs?
That is the big unknown about where it shows up. What is the discharge to the actual lake bed?
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't know yet. We're
Okay.
perplexed. There's a strong upward gradient. So there's a tendency to flow up towards the surface. We don't know where that manifests. Now, if you look all around the border of the lake, you have those wetlands and you have a lot of pretty prominent springs.
Yeah.
And so we're wondering if that's a great proportion of that flow that's moving toward the lake.
Especially the shallow stuff, but what about the deep,
Yeah,
I mean, cause it can't just all go to the basin in the groundwater system and sit there, right?
yeah,
It's gotta
come on.
It's gotta.
We don't see it yet. But that doesn't, yeah, that's one of the, kind of the next big mystery of this. This just shows some selected groundwater levels,
Hugh,
records, yes.
Could you just question, how long does it take it from snowpack to become visible in the lake?
Yeah, we haven't dated those yet. It's gonna be thousands, I think. It's gonna be fairly old water. So we have them all, those dates all, a bunch are sitting in the labs. So, yeah. Unfortunately, some of them are at Kip Solomon's lab at the U, and he's involved in the project, so hopefully they'll get cycled through the system quickly. Right, so this was kind of for a different purpose, but the black bar in all these hydrographs shows the same time period, so they're at different scales, they're also at different vertical scales. So it's depth to water versus time, versus day, or year on all of these. And these are wells that the USGS monitors annually for long term. So you can see in various areas, all show long-term declines at different rates, but they all are declining. And so that is actively reducing the head difference between the recharge area and the discharge area, which reduces the rate of flow to the lake.
So the water can be old, but the fact is that the reflection of a heavy snowpack on the levels of the lake through groundwater recharge doesn't have to be a long term. That could be a year and a half or 2 years, right? So
Yes.
once you get a heavy snowpack, the hydraulic pressure will make water report to the lake. Is
Yeah.
that right?
So the water levels and the flow rate down here will feel the changes up here. I
Yeah.
don't know that time delay, that depends on the.
But the water can be old. The water can be.
Yeah, the water itself, the particles are old,
Yeah,
but they're responding to current
yeah.
changes, and we see that in Snake Valley very clearly as well. We've got pre-modern or old water, groundwater levels, but you see a bump when there's a high precipitation here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Kind of hard. Okay. This is more.
Is that right? You want me to go ahead?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
More of the horrendous details of Darcy, but this is the governing equation for groundwater flow through the forest media. So just to show where there's some physical grounding in all this, and the rate of flow through this cross-sectional period basically just depends on the gradient, that's delta H, the difference in groundwater levels between the 2 points you've selected, and then the hydraulic properties of the aquifer expressed by the hydraulic conductivity. And then there's another term that I didn't show here that's hard to think about. It's called hydraulic diffusivity. That's the hydraulic conductivity divided by the storativity, the storage capacity of the aquifer. And that describes the time response of the aquifer in terms of flow, and its response to pressure changes elsewhere. Yeah. And this is just the scheme that they use. They do all their, this is the Zamora and Ingenbredt paper again. They applied this to the Great Salt Lake Basin in 2 methods. One is kind of a GIS method where they're looking at the bulk distributed properties and groundwater levels. And calculating, they subdivided the lake boundary into 3 different segments here, and calculated fluxes towards each of those. And then they did the more common cross-section method, where they basically just draw a cross-section like that and estimate the flux through the main groundwater basins that feed into the lake. Before, nobody had really attempted this kind of work at the scale of Great Salt Lake. And based on other types of studies, the going estimate was about 75,000 acre feet per year. That value, or 100,000, something like that, was adopted in the Great Salt Lake Basin Plan, Comprehensive Management Plan in 2013. Okay, so Hector and Paul's work are basically triple or more of that estimate. Now that might include, as we said, the discharge that's happening before the groundwater reaches the lake bed. And that's what we're starting to think that it probably does. Nonetheless, and there are large uncertainties, very large, but it suggests that we're looking at more like 10% of the total inflow water budget to Great Salt Lake is accounted for by groundwater. And coincidentally, I promise, there was a master's thesis student at SUNY Binghamton. This is Lauren Bunce, where she collected a lot of, this is all chemistry, all chemical modeling of the different inputs and showing what mixtures of river water and groundwater you needed to combine to create the Great Salt Lake brine, average brine composition. And that was 10 to 12. So for now, we're kind of looking at a 10% value for the total water budget of Great Salt Lake. That, of course, is going to cause some interesting issues in terms of, well, where is it going? As you said, are evaporation rates higher than what we thought? Where is it discharging to lake bed? How is it discharging? And how does that groundwater affect or sustain the water level of the lake? So all really unknown. And I hope we get there. Okay, I've probably taken all my time.
Wow. Very good. That it? Oh, yeah, you had one more slide.
Well, this is just kind of a picture in the wrap up of some of the things I talked about.
Okay.
Yeah, it is. Well, I got it out of the strategic management, Great Salt Lake strategic plan, so.
So someone asked earlier, are we involved in the Great Salt Lake? And the answer is.
Are we? No, we are. The wetlands group is also heavily involved. We have Becca Downards literally wrote the book on Great Salt Lake wetlands. She's published a Great Salt Lake wetland plant identification book, and we're looking at more projects to characterize water use and habitat changes in the marginal wetlands.
Yeah, Great Salt Lake, email today, I guess there was a bill passed requiring studies of the salinity. And some of our folks are involved in that as well. So, yeah, we're engaged. And the Hughes group is heavily engaged. Doing a great job. Thank you, Hugh.
Thanks. Thank you.
So, see, you're done early. Thank you. So Russ, you're up next. I do believe.
I'm here, you want me up?
You can sit right there, man. However you want.
Okay. Well, my piece of the budget update or the finance update is just the tracking year to date and legislative session for funding and just kind of a little bit of supplemental funding that came through for this session. So I have a handout to pass out here.
You want me to open this up?
So the handout has 3 pages. We'll just start on page 1 and then just go through these.
Oh, I guess I have to do this one. This one you want me to bring up?
Yeah. And you
Go wherever you want me to go?
go to the right or bring the whole, oh, there you go, right there.
That.
Yep, and go up to the top part, there you go.
Okay.
So, funding for UGS. It's a lot of work, as you all are aware, to get government agency funding. part of the process just for really any agency requires 6 bills that fund any particular government unity within the state. But for our update for ending March 31st for the quarter, you can see the operating budget, being operating budget, the 15 million, and then some adjustments here for 1.4 million, coming to a total budget of 16,778,804. Some of this funding is fixed, like general fund. We're always watching mineral lease throughout the year as that kind of fluctuates as far as that projection goes. And then some of the ones down toward the bottom, the dedicated credits, federal funds and transfers are appropriations that we receive from the legislature to collect funding. And each of these has to be approved. Each of these funding types, revenue types has to be approved by the legislature. So you can kind of see year-to-date revenue in the gray section at the top, where we are with federal funds that we've collected is 794. And just above that is a dedicated credit with 271,988, with most of that coming from the bookstore with publication sales. Transfer funds through March is 1.3 million, and then our non-lapsing carry forward is the 2,056,000. The expenditures to date across personnel to other pass-through is the 9.1 million. So as we kind of look to what we have left for the 3 months remaining in the year, is the difference. So to budget and revenue, this 3,122,000 is the difference. We're tracking to what the legislature has approved this for carry forward for 2024 is 1.5, and right now our projection, our report shows 1.4. Some of these need to be to specific projects that we have as far as what's in our non-lapsing authority, like the UGS down at the bottom for the 260 is what we project to, as far as spend rate and just the work that Groundwater does on that project specific, funding. And also Bonneville Salt Flats is we're tracking at about 290,000. And so we estimate general fund carryover of the 898,000. Any questions on the report, on the budget report?
The other pass-through, what kind of stuff is in that?
That's just pass-through, is a pass-through expenditure to another federal agency.
Federal or state or all federal?
Could be federal funds, could be transfer credits, transfer revenue as well.
Come from state agencies as well.
So for example, we have a project that Hugh's working on, I don't know if Hugh's still there, he left. The water modeling facility for the Great Salt Lake Basin. All that money was appropriated to us, but it was really designated to go to the USGS. So it passes through us for that kind of thing. Okay.
The next page is not as significant funding wise, but it does add to our 2024 budget. And this is just a crosswalk, across our appropriation units. Across the left-hand side of the page. And I'll wait a minute for Bill to.
Yeah, you can see this. Okay.
And yeah,
that's good.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
And so the appropriation unit on the left-hand side, as you see, the RNA is the administrative part of our division. Down through the different programs, groundwater, energy and minerals and so forth. And so this is funding that was added. This is appropriation authority that was added for our 2024 budget. And across the top, you can see the funding source. The first one is general fund to the 90,200 amount. And you can see the item, this is expanded to see the item name, and you can see that most of these are, related to pay for performance for our division. This is 2024 funding that the legislature is redirecting funding from governor's office, state finance to the departments and what for pay for performance. And so this affects all employees based on a quarterly performance review. As many of you may be experienced in the private sector, having to perform as part of your job. That's kind of where our state government is headed as well. Total pay for performance is about, it's about 192,000, if I remember right, Bill.
So
Yeah, 192,700.
So this isn't exactly the same as that.
No, it's not.
Yeah, do we have the right thing on the screen for?
That is
2024 GS all those crosswalk. That the one?
yeah, this is the one. Yeah, this is,
But that's not the same as.
no, this is expanded a bit, to show that there are pay for performance, amounts that are funded, across our division, across our programs. There's other pieces, that, for example, pay for performance, and then to the amount of, it shows it there, of 192,700, reallocation.
That's not on here.
I think I may have changed this up on your bill, so.
Okay, I'm sorry. I have what you gave me.
No, that's exactly what you gave me. So based on looking at the slide, the comp bill FY 2024 appropriation, the general fund of 90,400, and then follow that over to the different funding sources. And that's the total comp bill appropriation for 2024. The pay for performance amount of that is 192,700 for fiscal year 2024.
So, I don't know how much, a couple of years ago, the legislature decided to change how we pay people a little bit to create something called pay for performance. So that required us to put into place for everybody performance plans that are measured quarterly, requiring a quarterly interview with all of our employees. And then they're allocated some money, appropriated some money, and they give you an appropriation to give so that you can then spend on your people. But the way they appropriate it is, we got from general funds $89,800, but they appropriated $192,700. Where the rest of the money came from? It came from our grants, like our dedicated credits, our federal grants, our mineral lease, which created a bit of a problem for the UGS. Because it's kind of like funding, since about less than half of my funding comes from general funds, I've got to go ahead and still pay these raises. I've got to go find it somewhere in my budget. So like a federal grant, most federal grants allow a growth of 3%. But this year's cost of living adjustment is 3%. So the whole money that I have from federal grant, I got to go borrow from somewhere else in my agency or reduce expenses somewhere else to pay that. And so same thing with mineral lease. We were appropriated about 2.2 million, but our collections this year will probably be somewhere between 1.7 and 1.8. But I'm still appropriated for mineral lease, $24,100 to spend on. So kind of see we're going in the hole here to pay this. We got to find a way to dig that money up somewhere else. So if you're an agency that's 100% funded by general funds, the state general fund gave you enough money to make all these adjustments. And so on the pay for performance, they're also set it up so that everybody will get a ranking, either you were,
Exceeds expectations, meets
yeah, they had exceptional and the other one was successful. And so everyone that's successful, the department, not the division, will set the percent, but everyone that's successful will get that. So it might be, so they'll take this pool of money here, this 192.7, and say, okay, we're gonna split this up. And everyone that's successful gets, say, 2%. I'm picking a number, I don't know what it's gonna be. They haven't said it yet. And then the rest of the money, we want you to give them, everyone that's exceptional, a minimum of, say, 3%. I'm just making up that number.
Right.
But that will go to a smaller subset of people. But in no way can it exceed, it shouldn't exceed that 192.7. I mean, you know, and we were debating, should we spend any more than the 89,800, 89,800? Because that's the only new money I got. So we're in a bit of a quandary, we're working through it, and we'll have to go find the money somewhere. We're hoping that and then this will happen again next year. And the way they're gonna divvy it up is some of this money will be what they call one-time money, be like an incentive award at the end of the fiscal year. But there'll also be an equivalent amount of money that will go as a raise, ongoing money beginning beginning the 1st of July. And so the reserve account that we created 2 years ago, starting to put severance account money into it. We're hoping we can maybe dig into that later this year. We also passed a bill that will move all of our mineral lease royalties into the reserve account, which means that's like a savings account. Last year we lapsed 700,000. Oh, I can hardly say it out loud. Because we can no way forecast the huge gas price spike in January and February. And by then it was too late to ask the legislature for carryover authority, because you don't see that check until 3 months in arrears. So by then the legislature's over and I can't go back, and I asked for it in my building block to give it back to me, because the law says I'm supposed to have it. But they kept it anyway. The state legislature, so that's a bit of it. So that's what this pay for performance, if you're kind of wondering. So this is how much the state actually gave us to do pay for performance. The rest, we're supposed to steal it out of our other accounts. Is that crazy?
That seems, unreasonable, like, they're not,
It does. I don't have a good answer. In the end, it's like, suck it up, you know?
Because we are funded from all these different funding sources, there's a formula that drives it to a certain percentage of our budget, of our general fund budget and things like that. So, and that's what they use across the entire state government for this exercise.
But yeah, we get penalized by going out and funding our agency by non-state funds.
imagine the granting agencies from the feds don't love that their money's being reappropriated after it's been granted to you.
No, like I said, the feds allow like 3%.
Yeah, this would be beyond that.
And that's basically this is above and beyond. Because the cost of living in the US will already take that. Sort kind of stuff. So, anyway, okay.
So the bottom line for the number for 1.4, just a little bit different view with the same numbers that's in front of you. Just a danger of looking at these numbers too long is that, but the bottom line doesn't change, just a different way to look at it across our appropriation units. So we'll see what I did with the other one. On the third page, shows our budget appropriated for 2025.
Go ahead, I'll find it.
So look down at the last line, ongoing appropriation. So these are the different bills that fund UGS. 6 different bills. One of them has no impact, that has the zeros across it. The base budget ongoing FY 2025 adjustments. If you go clear down at the bottom, you can see the ongoing appropriation from previous session for current year ongoing appropriation. So this is what is in our base, this 12,210,100 across different funding sources. And of that is the 5,551,000 of general fund. If you look at the top, there is the highlighted, the 400,000 number. That is the funding that was put in our in the appropriation act for critical minerals. This is what funded, if there was another standalone funding for a certain bill, that would be part of that. It would have its own fiscal note, its own fiscal impact with its own funding source, but none of that came our way this year. But for this one study, like Bill talked about, for critical mineral study is in our budget. We do have some additional authority for transfer funding, that kind of stand out on this report for the Appropriation Act of 2025 appropriation. Just identified that we have the bathymetric LiDAR project. We needed more transfer authority for that project as we received funds from forestry, fire, and state lands. But total budget for the division is the 14,447,300 for fiscal year 2025.
So that's a couple million less than this year, right?
Yes, we have some transfer, or no, we have non-lapsing authority. That's what I believe is, Bill would have to correct me, it's historically high. I mean, it's 2 million plus of non-lapsing authority that's coming into fiscal year from 23 to 24. Usually the numbers down for our carryover authority coming into this year, into 25 is, we can carry over 1.5 million. But it's even, historically has been lower than that. Right?
No, yeah.
So you will have a carryover.
We will have a carryover.
Yeah.
See, historically, we were like 200,000 or less when I first got here. And so the last couple of years, we said, let's change that. I mean, the fact that we only gave back 700,000 is actually because we had raised it. And some of that carryover was what they call non-lapsing money, which is money for the Great Salt Lake studies and the money for the Bonneville Salt Flats. So that's a little bit of that. So those are dedicated to certain projects. We're also hoping that the reserve account that we're building up will allow us to dip in as we needed to cover those highs and lows. I mean, I was looking at, so severance tax is the money that's charged on oil, gas, and mining. And if you look at the state tax commission's reports, they break it out separately. But if we get an appropriation that was supposed to offset general funds, and it's based on a 3-year running average, the last 3 years of severance taxes collected on oil, gas, and mining. The good thing here is that it's a 3-year average. And as long as each year keeps going up, you're able to accrue extra money into your account. So I think of a simple scenario where each year it grows in the exact same amount. So then your appropriation that we're gonna get out of that account is gonna be based on the same as year 2, as they're going up the same amount every year. So the difference between year 2 and year 3 is what I get to build up into my account. So then what happens is if in down years, if it does go down, in theory, I've got money built up that I can draw on to help us sustain our level of service. And so what we asked to do in the legislation this year was not just severance tax go into that account. See, a restricted account is non-lapsing money, but doesn't show up on our budget. Unless, we still have to ask for an appropriation from it, but it's like a savings account there. We asked that the mineral lease money also be redirected to this severance account. So that if I have another $700,000 a year, I get to keep that money and I can draw on it in bad years, rather than giving it back to the state. Which I still don't understand, because the law says I'm supposed to get all 2.25%. I keep hammering that point, it drives me nuts, but anyway, that's the whole point of creating a restricted. Other agencies have had these for years. The UGS has never had one. So this was a first for us. And we're just attempting to even out this, like building up, like any good business would do, right? You save it for the rainy days, you know? So that's what we're trying to do here. So if we find out that we're a little short next year, we can go to during this coming year, we can go into the legislature and say, hey, can we ask for a supplemental for this fiscal year, meaning fiscal year that starts in July, to help us get through the rest of the year. And we may do that. But we'll have a better idea then whether we need to ask that. If we don't, we won't. We'll let that money. The good thing is that it went in 2022, it was about 79 million. The state collected as a whole on severance taxes. And in fiscal year 2023, they collected like 129 million. That's a big jump. That's growing on those severance taxes. And so we get 2.25% of the first, I don't know, 100 million that would be appropriated to us. So that's good.
Yeah.
So some we're tempted to do. We're trying to find ways to live in the uncertainty. Okay.
And just a couple of things to finish up here. There was an increase for COLA of 3% the legislature passed, and in the comp bill, as reflected here in that section, some increases in dental, just our benefits as state employees.
Okay. I'm gonna do that. That slide should be in. Remember that picture?
Yeah, yeah.
You don't remember that picture. That's what Bill Ray's place. I've actually put it on another slide also. Okay, I think I am, are you first, Mark, or is it Ben?
I'm first on the agenda. Those are legislative slides, so.
You know what I did is, in the end, I just took the slides you did in the staff meeting. I saved it, it was like 8 o'clock last night, I said, I'm gonna save some time.
Excellent. Okay, this is just an update of what passed and what failed, basically. So of these bills we have been tracking, is there, the board is it?
Yep, hang on.
So to start off, it was a very busy legislative session, record-breaking busy. There were 940 bills and, bills and
RFAs?
No. Resolutions, thank you.
Resolutions.
940 bills and resolutions all told that were introduced compared to last year where there were 933. And last year was a record, so we beat the record from last year. 591 passed, which is about 63% of what was introduced. They were very busy on Capitol Hill. And thus we were very busy.
So these are set up just to go slide.
Okay, so House Bill 384 was the bill that makes it so municipalities will turn over any geotechnical reports that are submitted with permits, and it's the final report for the permit issue that is gonna come to UGS, and we'll make those publicly available. Those go to hazards group, Steve will work with those. 519, this was a kind of a cleanup bill, but it included some very important legislation that Bill mentioned earlier that makes it so our mineral lease funds are deposited into our restricted accounts, that we can use them to average out for high years and low years of funding or of mineral lease income. Senate Bill 135, this is air mobility and aeronautics is a drone bill. So the final bill that passed, drones can't be connected to the internet when we fly over critical infrastructure, and critical infrastructure is almost everywhere. Highways and railroads are included in it. So most of our flights, the bill started with language that we couldn't use any Chinese or Russian-made drones or attachments to the drones. So this we can work with. House Bill 59, federal funds contingency planning. So if our federal government shuts down and our funds are cut off, Ben, who will speak next, will write contingency plans for all of our federal grants. So buy Ben a donut or something, because that's gonna be a lot of work for Ben.
What was the driver behind the drone bill that?
We have a drone pilot here.
I can answer that question. I met with the state senator who proposed this bill. It came from a fear that, well, there's a fear that the Chinese made drones, the DJI, which is by far the most common drone.
Oh, okay.
By far in the world, could be used and hacked. And that the data, like if we were to shoot images of a critical infrastructure, that when we hooked our computer up to the internet, the malware in the drone could then send the data back to China. And they could gather it. And the senator who I talked to cited a case. I did not try and verify the story. I don't know if it's true or not. But he had read that the Ukrainians were using Chinese-made drones in their reconnaissance in their war with Russia. And the Chinese had given their code to the Russians, and the Russians had hacked into the Ukrainian drones.
Yeah.
That was the short version of what he told me.
And as
one of my
originally
motivations for this.
written, we would have had to replace all our drones with non-Chinese made drones, which cost, I don't remember, order of magnitude, some of them higher.
Yeah,
So put it-
and along with our like LiDAR devices
Right.
and our multispectral cameras.
And it would have been any agency that uses drones, which
In
most
the States.
agencies are using.
Are these American-based companies that are having the products built in China, or are they just Chinese companies?
Chinese companies.
Importing them into the US?
And the Department of Interior enacted a ban like this several years ago. The hard part was at the time, there were no US-based drone manufacturers that had been able to survive financially, be viable in the marketplace. There is a company out of Seattle called they sells Oddtails. But most of it's owned by a Chinese. I mean, it's based in the US, but it's a Chinese company using Chinese-made parts. But they had set it up such that, at least in theory, it was passing the Department of Interior's regs to be US made. But doesn't mean there aren't others trying to pop up, where there's a market, somebody will, if there's a ban in place, someone will find a way to fill it, but it's not there at this point.
Right.
Paleo landmark amendments, this just creates an alternative method to create a paleontological landmark. There have been none created to date in Utah. Previously, UGS and our board, you had to create these landmarks. Now the legislature with the governor's office can create them, and we can provide input on anything that's recommended.
So you may remember we tried to designate St. George, and then the city of St. George reneged. And they started passing legislation because it was going to require them to give up some control. So they passed legislation last year that allowed them to be a repository, and then this year they initially wanted to set up so the governor and the legislature could bypass the UGS and just designate it any place they wanted. And these are the type of bills that Mark is doing a great job of tracking these things, and he alerts us. So then that happens, the bill's proposed, I pick up the phone and I call the state representative who proposed, says, wait a minute. His name's Joseph Elissa, and I said, Joseph, you can't do this, because then you're not requiring any input. So we agreed on some language ultimately that allows us to provide input. They have to let us know, and we can provide input to them before they just willy-nilly go and do this sort of a thing.
This was also of great interest to Natural History Museum.
Yeah. We collaborate with them, both last year and this year, we worked closely with the Natural History Museum to put some guidelines or guide rails, whatever you wanna call them, in place. Cause when they first proposed the bill a year ago, it was gonna allow any place, any city to designate something and keep the fossils in their city, meaning, you know, Billy Bob and Aunt Jane, if she had a Quonset hut and he had a bulldozer, they could get him boned and stick it in the Quonset and keep it. And we're like, wait a minute, you can't do that, you know, that's, cause city lands by state statute are considered state-owned lands. I mean, it's a descendancy thing. And so right now, the state Geological Survey, we have the responsibility to protect and serve and curate these types of fossils. And they were trying to usurp that. So ultimately, the bill passed was that only a class 1 or 2 city that has a museum can become a federal repository, can keep the fossils in their place. But that was the result of a direct effort on our behalf and working with the museum to get the language right so that somebody in the middle of nowhere doesn't do this sort of a thing.
In St. George, the museum there is great. We don't have any
We
issues
got no-
with what they're doing. It's the unintended consequences of what they were proposing.
But I thought it was funny is we started this whole thing, you know, to make it that, and they started running roadblocks. And anyway, it was kind of crazy. Okay.
502, critical infrastructure and mining.
We talked about this a little earlier.
Okay, yeah. It's gonna have, well, OGM, this directly impacts OGM, because they're gonna have to do a study on sand and gravel, essentially for the state. They're gonna subcontract some of that to us, Andrew, for the Energy and Minerals Program, thank you. 261, this is what spurred UGS to change the EDIA committee to the GEO committee. So we've reinvented that committee because of this bill.
I can't use certain terms.
Yeah, there's certain terms that are prohibited. Okay. Great Salt Lake revisions 453. I gotta, hold on a second.
I can remember that, I can do it.
You wanna do this one?
You want me to?
Sure.
So, this was a bill that was going after Great Salt Lake, they're trying to get mining, people were wanting to mine lithium. You may remember Compass wanted to produce lithium. They had invested in lithium projects and the state wants to start charging a separate tax on that. Whereas Compass was asserting in the long run that our lease with the state says salts. Lithium is a salt, but the state was saying, no, wait a minute, no, this is gonna be a separate mineral. We wanna tax this differently, and any sampling that you do out there, you know, that identifies what your concentration levels are. So the Utah Petroleum Association, when they said, well, wait a minute, this could have a unintended consequence that if you sample the water in a well, say out in the Uinta Basin, and identify critical minerals in it, then you have to report that and the state can tax those minerals that you might produce in your produced water. At least that was their take, the Utah Petroleum Association, on that bill. And they sent out a letter to all the producers out there that, hey, wait a minute, don't let any of the people sample your wells. And we had an agreement in place to sample a lot of wells in the basin, so we could see if we could get a handle on part of our critical minerals study. You're not here, you know what we're talking about.
Yeah, we had at BYU several ongoing projects that got torpedoed by that.
Yeah, so it's not an explicit statement about produced water, but it's an unintended consequence.
Yeah.
A perception that it could lead to that.
Some of our producers are giving us samples.
Some have gone ahead and doing it, but it's an uphill climb now. Okay.
Okay,
We talked about this, but you can go ahead and mention it again.
Seismic Safety Commission, unfortunately, will be sunsetted January 1, 2025. The commission may reform as a committee or working group without legislative backing or official stamp of approval. This bill, nobody foresaw, well, that I know of, as being contentious even. It's just an extension of an existing committee. There's no funding attached to the bill. It doesn't cost the state any money. They do good work. They're volunteers, and there was pushback. Do we want to play the video? Or do we want to? Or will it play?
It'll probably open up.
If it doesn't work, that's fine too.
Hang on, that's all I've got here.
So this is on the floor when the bill failed.
Let's see if I can take this. This is what. Oh, we need to turn on the volume on the TV. I got it off. There's a remote somewhere. Yeah, somewhere. Just This is Senator, or she's Senator Escamilla?
Yes,
Elissa Escamilla. She was strongly advocating that we.
There were several people that spoke strongly in favor of the bill. I think that, I mean, there's been pushback on any committees trying to reduce the size of government. The thing that was kind of interesting is that this bill, there was no fiscal note, there was no staff attached to it, it was just.
Hope everyone had a good weekend. We're through with weekends during this session, so now we've got 5 days left to do the rest of our work.
That's good. I'm two different spots.
Some people are oversimplifying what it means that the big one is coming. Serious oversimplification for lawmakers is scary, because when that big one hits, it's at least minimum to 3 to 6 months with no power, no water. The ability to continue to have a group educating our younger kiddos, which some of them are here, and younger generations of what's happening. I mean, I was taken back because this has been working for so long at no cost to the state. So I guess my question and to all of you is to every senator that's voting no on this critical piece of safety for our state is that
Core Center, if you'd please unmute the laptop. Patrick, if you would check your microphone feed, I believe it's muted now. Where's Patrick? I don't know. Mark, sorry to interrupt. We have lost audio for the recording. If you could please check the audio to make sure it's not muted on this laptop near the wall.
Oh.
Thank you. We can hear you now. Recording's running.
I just pointed out that Haynes, who was the Senate sponsor for this bill, extended an invitation for people to camp on his land after a big event on the Wasatch Front. And then for RFA's funding requests, Bill mentioned that the critical minerals study was funded. It was a bad year for earthquakes across the board, aqueducts across the Wasatch Fault Zone, that funding was not included. Earthquake early warning, that was not included. We wrote a white paper with the Museum of Natural History, laying out how to finish prep of the mega block in the back of the Core Center here, and that was not run, essentially, nobody picked that up, so that's something for next year that we need to work on. There was a Phragmites eradication RFA from Doug Owens for $2 million that did not get funded that our wetlands group was interested in.
That's it.
That's it. Any questions?
But the news reports that they're making progress on the Phragmites, so is this a different?
It's the same problem. It was more money to address the issue.
There's more money to do more of it.
To do more of it.
Because the state lands group is using funding out of their restricted accounts.
I see.
To fund some of this.
And so are the other agencies applying for for appropriation?
Yeah.
To also.
This is a multi-agency effort.
Yeah.
On the Phragmites, yeah.
As a side note, we're gonna try to work on a public information series, one of our print pulled out things that addresses Phragmites, where they are, what they are.
Where did it come from? Where did it come from?
Well, there's two subspecies of Phragmites. You're getting this from geologists, so take it with a grain of salt. Two subspecies of Phragmites, one of them is native to this area and the other was introduced, and I don't recall where it was introduced from.
Okay.
It was European.
And the introduced one
is
one
the
that-
problem, right? So if you go out to the West Desert, some of those wetlands have Phragmites that are not as aggressive, and those are the native variety.
Yeah.
Our wetlands people can describe in detail the differences
Yeah,
between the two,
but
but the
that's
ones
good.
that are around the Great Salt Lake are the invasive variety.
Okay.
And they're the same species, so it makes it a little bit tougher to talk about. And I suspect a lot of legislatures don't know those details, which was why we're hoping to put something out. Okay.
Okay,
That's it.
thanks. We're down the home stretch. We're within 4 minutes.
Thank you.
So we were talking about, putting our roots in Spanish, and you asked, how do we, is there demand, what is it? So Ben's gonna talk a little bit, does anybody not know Ben?
Happy to introduce myself. I don't think I've met the majority of the board.
Thank you, please do, Ben.
UGS Board, thanks for having me today. My name is Ben Dlin. I'm a contracts and grants analyst. I started with the state about 6 months ago. And I wanted to talk to you today about an issue that arose in mid-March concerning the loss of federal funds to UGS due to non-compliance with an executive order. Do you want to?
I don't have the slides. No one's sent me any slides.
Oh, I may have emailed them. Yeah,
When?
that's not a problem. A couple of weeks ago. I'm sorry, I
Slides? Oh, you start talking, I'll go.
Yeah, I can speak to it without slides. That shouldn't be too much of an issue.
I'm sorry.
Not a problem. So I'll take everyone back in history a little bit. In February 2000, the Clinton administration drafted and passed an executive order saying that all federally funded programs must have a policy in place discussing resources for limited English proficiency speakers, folks who don't speak English as their native language. So as part of that executive order, we have to have a policy in place regarding these resources. We've been out of compliance for about 24 years. The EPA finally called us out on this. They've hired a new fleet of lawyers for the mountain region to check for compliance in their grant programs. With this lack of compliance, they have put on pause about $750,000 of UGS federal funds for our wetlands program. So in order to ameliorate this, we have to have an active policy in place that mentions resources for non-English speakers. It's not that big of a deal. We don't actually have to translate or have interpreters or have resources actively being created. We just have to have a policy in place. So I've drafted a policy that says, as funding allows, conditionally, we'll make an effort to have resources for our federally funded programs in other languages. This is an issue that is actually going to affect the entirety of DNR. Other divisions have significantly more exposure. They have tens of millions of dollars of EPA grants. We have a feeling other federal agencies will follow suit. So I've worked with Nathan Schleibach, the Deputy Director of DNR, and they're looking like they'll put this policy in place at the department level as well. So in order to become compliant with EPA, we have to enact a policy and then just check a box in a form that says it's been enacted. You don't have to provide the policy, they won't ask for it, we just have a policy in place. So for today, there's a policy here. I apologize for the size of the text, it's rather lengthy. But this policy more or less says we understand there's a need for these resources and we'll do our best to create them as funding allows, hopefully not committing staff time or actual dollars to creating these resources. As wonderful as it would be to translate all of our federal resources into other languages, unfortunately, it's not all that viable based on funding and staff commitments. I wish I'd had this printed out to hand to everyone just because this is a little small, but we can forward this and circulate it after the meeting for a vote. Maybe best.
Do you know, was it included in the board packet? Maybe not sure.
don't
Sent
believe
out.
so.
I just need to-
No, it wasn't.
Okay, I need to make sure, yeah. we get-
Send it to me.
Yeah.
I'll circulate it.
Yeah, sure, yeah.
Same as, I don't think his
It wasn't in there either, yeah.
finance one wasn't in there.
Right.
So follow up.
So we'll have some follow-up. Okay.
Yeah.
Do you need a motion on this and it needs to be approved?
Yes.
Yes, I think that the board does need to, given this is a policy, right, we need to have your input and okay on it.
Can we take a minute and read it, or?
Well, it doesn't have to be right now, we can, you can do that once we send it to you and you have some time to digest. Your
Only
call.
that you
Your call.
decide as a
Yeah.
board.
I mean, I've read the whole thing in the last couple seconds, I'm still unsure what it does.
Yeah, so the EPA and this executive order 13166 just says that recipients of federal funds must have a policy in place.
No, I got that.
Yeah.
But on this policy, so our policy is gonna be,
That we will try, as funding permits, to create resources for limited English proficiency speakers.
That's all it says, basically.
Mhm.
Is that under implementation?
Yes.
What language assistance as funding permits?
Yeah.
I'm good with it.
I'll move to approve it.
Okay.
I'll
The UGS.
second.
Okay, we
Excellent.
have a motion to approve, and all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Ken here?
Aye.
Okay, there you go. Any opposed? Say no. Okay, the approval for the policy for providing resources for limited English proficient individuals and the UGS federally funded programs is approved.
Excellent. Thank you, folks. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them after the meeting, but this will likely go to DNR to be enacted in the next couple of weeks. So hopefully this is no longer an issue for any of the divisions.
Yeah, thank you, Ben.
Thank you, folks.
Thank you. Sorry I didn't have your slides up right.
Oh, okay. They're a little small to read anyways.
Thank you, Ben. And I think the agenda next was mine.
So, okay, if I just speak from here? Okay. Yeah, just an update on where things stand with planning for the meeting. We're under 2 months away now, so feels like it's gonna be happening tomorrow, but, first week of June in Park City, go to the next one. So just some highlights. We'll start off with the field trips. We opted to go with a 2-day overnight field trip before the meeting starts this year. An overnight trip hasn't been done in a number of years. And there's a little bit of maybe resistance from the AASG executive committee, but we thought, well, let's put it out there and see what happens. And as of last night, we had 25 people.
Wow.
For it. So it's gonna go. Stefan Kirby and Mike Vanberg are leading that one out in the Uinta Basin. They'll be going to Dinosaur National Monument and have dinner there at the quarry wall that night. And Jim Kirkland will be giving a presentation.
I'm excited about this.
Yeah.
Mike asked for my favorite caterer in Vernal. I'm like, well, favorite is a loaded word because there's only one I know.
I like Antica Foreman. I've had them.
No, they're good. Do they cater remotely though?
I thought they do it I've done to-goes. I've had them make lunches for me. They're good.
They are good.
Okay, next one. Who's up too far? So in the middle of the meeting, and this one is part of the general meeting registration, so it's typically 100 or so people that are on this trip. And we'll just be bringing them down to the Salt Lake Valley. We've got stops at Snowbird Glen and GK Gilbert Park. And, we're gonna end up at the state capitol. Oh yeah, so I should mention there's some hazards and mapping folks that are helping lead this one. We'll end up at the state capitol and do a little tour to see the base isolators and talk about the seismic upgrade to the building that was done. Kind of with the overview of the valley there, we'll talk Salt Lake Valley, seismic hazard, magna earthquake, West Valley fault, that kind of thing. And then Genevieve Atwood, former Utah state geologist, former Utah state legislator, has agreed to give a little talk. I talked with Genevieve yesterday.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, how much time and what she might touch on, that kind of thing. So we thought that'd be kind of nice, and maybe especially since it is 75th anniversary of UGS, and she was kind of served right in the middle of that span, pretty much, mid-80s.
She led the charge to get women allowed in the Alta Club.
She did. She's the first state geologist that was a woman in the country.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's broke ground in a couple areas.
Yeah.
Okay, and then the post-meeting trip, I think is the next one, yeah. So this is just a one-day trip, looking at water issues and hazards issues along the Wasatch Back. So going up to Ogden Valley and Snow Basin, where we've been monitoring landslides for years.
I was on the UGS board under Genevieve Atwood.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you're on round 2.
Yeah, Lee, or Rick asked me if I would apply.
Yeah.
And I spent 9 years on the board before. And I said, I'd already spent 9 years, Rick. And he said, we know that, doesn't matter, please apply.
Well, I'm glad to have you during my tenure.
I've got.
Okay. All right, what's up next? We had a couple really nice guest tours. Mark Milligan and Jackson and Jim Davis and Cheryl are going to be leading. One will be heading up to Cascade Springs. Has anybody not been to Cascade Springs?
I haven't.
You haven't? Okay. It's up. It's it's on the back east side of the Wasatch, about Midway. And it's a big, it's really beautiful spring complex.
Oh, is it?
Boardwalks and stuff to go through it. Yeah.
Well, it's not
They'll
easy.
have lunch at the Sundance Resort. Take a couple chairlifts, I think, up to the restaurant. Then the other one is kind of a museum tour, Park City Museum and the Alphangan Ski Museum, with lunch at the Red Banjo.
Oh,
Which
fun.
is, the oldest restaurant in Park City.
Yeah.
Numbers, Mark, right now, we've got 10 signed up for the Cascade Springs one and 11 for the museum.
Great. Genevieve told me she signed up. One of those.
She's going on everything. She's doing it all.
So is there any way a board member could go on one of those?
Why not? Sure, we should be able to make that. What do you want to go on?
Well, all of them.
Good
So-
answer.
Just looking at that Park City, I mean, I go up to Park City, but I haven't been in any of those museums or, you know.
We can probably arrange some kind of
We'll find a way to make that happen.
guest registration.
Yeah. We're gonna ask for their help anyway, so we may as well find a way to make
That's
it worth
true.
a while. So.
Okay, next one is, so then the main meeting is 3 days, opening plenary, closing plenary sessions, lots of interaction with USGS, breakout sessions, and that's all organized by the AASG Executive Committee, so I'm still waiting to see the schedule for that, but there are a number of committees within AASG, you know, like hazards or critical minerals or, you know, whatever. So that's being put together now. And then closing reception banquet on Wednesday night, and Margie Chan, U of U, has agreed to be the featured speaker there. Excited about that. We just in the last couple of weeks have really begun a concerted effort to get sponsors. And where things stand at the moment is a couple of federal agencies, and these are both Department of Interior groups, USGS and BOEM. They've both expressed interest in sponsoring, and we'll see what we get. We hear that there's like a $9,900 cap on department level sponsorship for an event. But so it'd be roughly $5,000 between the two, but we'll see.
They both, in the past, they've done like 10,000.
Yeah.
USGS has.
If we get more, then I'll be happy. But I think we can expect a minimum of about 10,000 from between the two of them there. The AASG Foundation, they typically sponsor the Wednesday lunch, which the bill for that is around $5,000. They need to vote on that and approve it, but it's likely.
They use it as a fundraising event as well.
Yeah, yeah.
For their foundation.
We just found out yesterday, Friends of Great Salt Lake, they're gonna give us a grant. Janae reached out to them. And
great.
Next day heard back, sure.
And I put in a request to the DNR as a whole.
Oh, yeah, I didn't get that one.
Yeah.
We haven't heard anything back from them.
Still waiting to hear back, but we've given them a request as well.
Yeah.
They've indicated willingness, we'll see. I would say yes, but.
Okay. Brunton, they're giving us $250 cash and then some other things. It's kind of an interesting offer, but it goes beyond the AASG meeting. They're also donating a Brunton Transit with some inscription on it to AASG for some other award that I think might be one of those that they've been taking nominations for recently. They get awarded by GSA. Yeah.
Oh, that'd be the Fry Award, I think.
Yeah, one of those anyway, so it's like, well, whatever, we'll take the $250. And then UGA, they're still, it sounds like they're agreeable to some level of sponsorship, they just need to decide what the number's gonna be. I think that's everything that we have feelers out for now, so. You all got the email from me, with these.
This is we're asking for your help.
Yeah, these 3 documents, so we've got this packet of material that if you know of anybody that might have any interest in helping sponsor the meeting, we've got the sponsorship form with the different sponsorship levels and the different values associated with those levels, if they're interested in the, you know, the tax implications. ASG is a 501(c)(3) organization. We've got the 1-page flyer that just gives a little background on what the AASG is and a little bit of information on the meeting.
And some of the donations come with a free admission too, right?
Yeah, the gold and the silver levels, the gold has 2 complimentary registrations, full meeting registrations.
Can you resend that email? Would you mind doing that, Mike?
I can do that.
February 29th or something.
Yeah, now that we're getting this close, we'll,
okay.
Yeah, resend that.
It took so long it took a while to get it going because we're waiting on the AASG.
Yeah.
To get their act together.
Yeah, I think, yeah.
Then the other.
What is your total funding goal here?
As much as we can get.
Yeah.
It's typically, you know, in the $20,000-$25,000 range for recent past.
You're a little over halfway there. Yeah, yeah,
The total meeting budget is a little over $100,000, so.
yeah.
Um,
So we're just, you know, I went back and looked when Rick ran this in '09 and the sponsors he had. And they weren't big. He said he sent out 70 letters. 70. And nobody called back. Nobody responded. But he reached out and got a few, Wasatch Brewing gave him a bunch of beer, I think is what he said.
Bunch of beer.
Yeah, well, because there's every night, there's basically a hospitality suite from like 9 to 11.
Oh, yeah, I understand.
And it's in one of the rooms, and so you can bring in your own alcohol. So they stocked it up with as much as free stuff as they could get. So, but he didn't get much last time. You know, there was a couple of small mining companies that gave like $1,000.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's one pretty metal. Oh, yeah, we reached out to Terracon, haven't we?
Yeah.
I just,
I got approval on some, I'll let you know.
did you?
Oh, wonderful, thank you. Yeah, that'd be great. So if you know somebody somewhere, we would love for a little.
Yeah, if there's anybody out in the basin or,
I mean, XCL's been putting money out, so I'll ask.
I think someone ought to ask Josh, right?
I can get Josh to put some out.
That'd be wonderful. And we're gonna be out in the basin, if he wants to come to the dinner that night.
Get some made. You have dinner right on the, next to that Allosaurus school. It's not too bad.
And maybe he comes out and sponsors the dinner or something out there.
I'll get that to him.
Thank you, I appreciate it. Okay, is that it?
that's everything I had.
And then I had, this is where I was gonna use that picture. And I just grabbed your other picture. So I think we talked in our board field trip about going to the Uinta Basin, right, or eastern Utah?
Yeah,
Was my recollection right?
that's right, yeah.
Okay. Are you still on board to do that? Any discussion?
We haven't.
IDB, we got the CCUS stuff going on. We got obviously a lot of hydrocarbon exploitation going on. What else would you want to see?
Well, that's you.
Yes.
I'll put that to you.
Stuff that's new is you have a number of new frac sand mine operations going. Some of them are huge.
They're mining frac sand?
Oh, yeah.
I realize they're mining frac sand.
3 big ones. So because no sand is being transported into the basin anymore. It's all local now.
Wow.
Is any of that frac sand exported?
It's all used right inside.
It's all domestic use.
I mean, we don't have a train. You can't get that railroad built.
We got trucks. I ran a lot of trucks.
I mean, trucking it out of basin would just be uneconomic. Yeah.
And what formation is it coming out of?
Mostly, well, no, it's actually coming out, so the biggest one's coming out of the Navajo.
Okay.
Or Doug Sprinkle's not here, so I can say Navajos, right? Yes, I'm not gonna let him push me around anymore.
We did the same thing with the Dakota.
Oh, yeah. First Nagarita and then the Muddy. Muddy, I've been to the Muddy formation. It's not the, and then Doug's not here.
Okay.
Anyway, that's interesting, and some of that's on state land, for the frac sand. If you guys are interested in seeing some of the big double barrel frac jobs, that's very new technology. You gotta remember, you have more oil being produced out there now than has ever been.
I know.
We're at all-time highs.
And if you haven't been to one of those big frac operations where that's pretty impressive.
That'd be impressive.
Has anybody been to, who's been to one? You've been to one, I've been, but a bunch of you have not been. It's, if nothing else, it's interesting to see how it all, when those diesels fired up, man.
Other stuff that's going on is they have, and this would be more OGM, but they've had some orphan wells that has been an issue. That if you guys wanted to see where that is on kind of the flanks of the big gas play. Although, that's more an OGM and less of a survey issue.
Yeah, but we could also do Dinosaur National Park and do Split Mountain.
If you wanted to see the formations that it's going, we could go through 9 Mile on the way.
That'd be part of it. So there's a lot of options there. If you guys have some specifics, please work with us. We have one more meeting between now and then for the board in August.
So what were the dates again for the proposed?
Hang on, I pulled it, I have it on my calendar. I have on my calendar, I marked it off as, I think it's in the minutes, but I had either the 18th to the 20th or the 19th to the 20th.
Yeah,
That's
that's
either
what I
Wednesday,
have.
Thursday, Friday, or Thursday, Friday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I have.
Okay.
Okay. That's so good? Target for
Yeah.
that? Okay.
What is it, Thursday, Friday?
It can be Wednesday through Friday or Thursday and Friday.
Okay, so
It
it
depends
hasn't
what we set
quite
up.
been decided yet, but it's
No, but we can nail that down.
September 19th timeframe.
Right,
We do
yeah.
everything you were talking about, Riley, in 2 days.
And I know you have issues, you might be able to come out for the day.
I really wanna come,
I know.
I might be able to see if I can make some arrangements.
Okay, we would love to have you join us.
Oh, boy, I love you as a
translate
this field trip.
The other thing that I like
Since you have to go through 9 Mile.
is the Gilsonite mines.
I was wondering about the Gilsonite
Oh,
mine.
yeah, I wanna see that. Haven't done that.
We're a small enough group, we might be able to pull that out. I've taken groups of like 15 to.
Have you ever gone underground in
Yes.
Bonanza? I'd love to do
I have.
that.
Is anybody else?
Been there.
Am I the only one?
No, I've been there.
All right, Dave. Am has been under.
The OGS board got it today, so I'm sure they have.
Yeah, and I know the folks out there several times.
For the Cowboy Day or which?
On the, at Bonanza, American Gilsonite.
Still been, that's.
Yeah, so those are the ones that I've taken with students out there before and we've gone underground. They will provide you with some of the gear. You might need some, did you need to have FRCs for everybody?
No, they provided FRCs, you just had to have your steel-toed shoes.
Steel-toed shoes.
They give you, you know, if you have hard hats, they provide hard hats and safety glasses.
When I took suits, we had given them an FRC, fire retardant clothing. Sorry to use an acronym there. But that might be something we could set up if there's interest. Cause then you can also, if you're really interested, you can tag onto Gilsonite style and oil shale style. Cause it's not that far away.
If you're right there, there's a lot of really good.
There's stuff out there by my hands.
Yeah,
But that'd be a good half day.
yeah, okay.
That might push you to a 3-day, because you wouldn't want to rush that.
So let's sit down and scope it out. Okay, so we're still on track. That's what I wanted to make sure. Okay.
So Michael, the picture in the photograph in the, upper right corner, yeah, what is that view of?
Spring River Formation.
Vast Green River Formation there, right?
And what is that?
I don't know.
Those are the microbialites that Mike Vandenberg likes so much.
Oh.
Those are Mike's friends.
Those are my friends. And this is the wall at Dinosaur National Park.
Yeah.
That's another microbialite on the bottom left. Big old,
I would have called that a stromatolite in my day.
well, same thing.
I know.
Then that's the
And that's Split Rock Mountain, right?
Yeah.
Split Mountain? Yeah. At the south end or the east end of the national park.
So the
National Monument.
equivalent to like the.
Yeah, there's a campground down here by the Green River, and this is this beautiful viewpoint. Okay, that one I do not know where that picture was taken.
Yeah, which was called Hell's Hole in, he's almost in Colorado in that photo, so.
Oh, is
That's buried in Utah.
Yeah, he just says south of Hurlow in the caption.
Okay.
The ancient microbial heads, several feet in diameter in the Green River.
Wow,
Formation.
I just never have seen that.
Okay,
Come on, we'll get you some.
Yeah.
Blow the truck.
so now you got it done.
Okay. A lot of them
And they
there.
polish it nice.
That's gonna be one of the swag items for the ASG meeting. We got Dempster's been slicing them up.
Oh, wow.
Nice.
Bunches of them in there.
And I've talked to Jeff Keach to give us some.
Oh, I can see those.
Yeah, we're, for the RMS APG meeting, we'll give her a lot of the honeycomb calcite that way. Or as our speaker gifts.
Okay, is there anything else you want to talk about?
When's the June,
Huh?
Crawford Water info in June?
Now you get on the receiving end of a piece of
We
microbial.
don't have a June meeting this year.
June meeting for what?
So
let me put it this way, the date for the annual picnic is still up in the air. Mainly because we're hosting this meeting this week.
Right.
And then I know I am gone for a week on the Colorado River.
Oh, good.
Rafting, Riley's coming on the Colorado River for a week.
Which section?
All of it,
Yeah, going from,
Lee's Ferry to Lake Mead.
Oh, through the Grand Canyon.
Through the Grand Canyon.
Yeah, 14, is that 7
With a
days?
motorized raft, it's an 8-day trip.
Okay. That's pretty quick.
Yeah, that is pretty fast.
Well, if you're floating, not without a motorized raft, then it's like 15 days.
That sounds fun.
It does. And you know what's amazing about it is, your cell phones don't work.
Yeah.
So, yeah, a year and a half ago, two years ago, I tried to get BYU alumni to run one of these. This was the last time I went. And I could not get those sorry souls to do anything. I'm sorry. And I finally said, forget it. And Adam Hiscock, who works for us, his wife's family owns Colorado River Adventures and Trek Expedition. Crate is called. And I just called Bonnie and I says, give me a week when I can book the whole trip. And I booked the whole trip in like a year and a half ago. And I says, I'll fill it. And it's 24 people to fill it, and I have 25 right now.
So you two need to read the book Emerald Mile
already done it.
before you go.
I've not read that. I
Oh,
went
you
20
read
years,
it.
I've done the trip 20 years ago. But I wanted to do it again before I got
That
too
guy,
old.
he's not very nice to my ancestors there in St. George. Called an inbred, Hicks.
Well, thanks, man. Same to you.
Guy from,
So we,
Perfect.
oh, yeah.
from Vernal.
Yeah.
What a guy, he,
Oh, yeah.
So there's another book out there, we swam the Colorado, the Grand Canyon.
oh, I have.
Two college-age kids in the 50s, without rafts or anything, swam the whole thing.
I absolutely think the Emerald Mile was one of the greatest books I've read.
It's an interesting book.
It's an adventure story.
Yeah, I
When they get the wave.
Okay.
Okay, the other one you
So-
need to read is Death in the Grand Canyon.
Death of the Grand Canyon.
Oh, yeah, but that's like,
I know, but
I'll bring it, because it's great reading.
What is that?
Just everybody that's died in the canyon. There's a lot of people in the Grand Canyon.
Wow, I hope I'm not one of them.
I'll bring it.
So, bottom line is, we don't have a date yet for June.
But maybe it might not be June,
It might be early July. We gotta do it before Mike leaves.
Beyond sponsorships, is there anything else you needed help with?
Yeah, do you need like volunteers or?
At the meeting?
Yeah.
You know what, we'll take volunteers if people wanna come up.
You wanna come up?
Be at the check-in desk. We're gonna have groups of people there at a time, so, nobody would be on their own.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I just see potential for like gophers, we just need people to be, oops, we're out of this.
Can you go get this? Can you go find that?
We've got quite a few, available folks from UGS, but if anybody, on the board wants to help out.
It would lighten the load on our staff, if we had more of you guys, if you want to.
Yeah.
Sure. That'd be great.
Yeah, do me a favor, I guess, and just shoot me an email, maybe.
There's
expressing
So I made Mike's
interest and when
point
you might be
on the
available.
meeting. Mike here is the point on our meeting. He's kind of taken the lead on that. Done a great job. So, yes, Ammon.
So if you volunteer, you
I
get
just
the
can't
discounts.
find that email.
We can get the brunt discounts if you want.
I can't find that email. These are the only three that
Okay.
come up. So
Anybody else have anything else, any other questions? The Crawford Award announcement has gone out to our staff requesting nominations.
Okay.
you don't have to say anything.
Okay, is there anything else that we need to do before we conclude?
I don't think so.
Okay, well, thank you. It was a great presentation, as always. Lots of amazing presentations and just high quality, top notch things happening here. So we appreciate it. And it is 11:36 and this meeting is now adjourned.
Thank you.
Okay.